Before we get started, there's a tsunami advisory for Hawaii. An 8.0 magnitude earthquake was near Russia, so it looks like the tsunami advisory, I should say, an advisory going out to all of Hawaii. This is breaking just as we're getting started from for the show, and considering it could save lives, we'll always try to make sure we get those messages out to anybody who may be listening out in Hawaii or anywhere in the Pacific. Please stay safe, everybody, and we'll be monitoring the situation to see what happens. In the meantime, we're going to be talking about things that are substantially less relevant, but still relevant to the culture, and that is South Park's latest episode, though not out. They put out a trailer, and Cartman is Charlie Kirk. Now, this matters, my friends, because it basically means, I got to say it, I know the left is going to whinge and whine about it. Feels like we won the culture war. That's it. They didn't make a single episode about Joe Biden or Harris. Now they're making episodes about Charlie Kirk. Charlie made it. Charlie Kirk changed his profile picture to that of Eric Cartman. And I'm pretty sure South Park is older than Charlie Kirk is. Easily. Several years, in fact. So it's pretty crazy to see that Charlie, TPUSA, Trump, and this independent media space has become substantially more relevant than any other cultural reference that South Park could be mocking right now. That could be a sign of the collapse of society, or maybe we've just won. So we'll talk about that. Plus, it looks like Stephen Colbert is trying to get fired. Yeah, at least that's what Time Magazine is saying. He's basically begging to get fired by attacking his network mercilessly. We'll talk about that. And then we've got an interesting story. I covered this on my morning show. It's the Tamura, New York City conspiracy theory. While Eric Adams, the mayor, and the media have reported that this guy in New York in this mass shooting had a note in his pocket, a letter saying that he was targeting the NFL. There are many believe that his true motivations was targeting Blackstone. Blackstone has granted, the president of Blackstone gave the largest donation to Tel Aviv University in its history. Not to mention, one of the women, the executive that was killed, was a Jewish philanthropist. And so some believe that this may have been motivated by this globalized, the Intifada movement. The target that he went to was actually on a list of targets put up by these activists. Now, it's maybe conspiracy theory. Nobody really knows for sure what this guy's motivation was, so we'll go through that. And plus, we got a bunch more stories to get through. We got a lot, actually. Chatbots are now passing the Turing test, so they claim. Gen Z college grads are basically unemployed. We'll talk about that and more. Before we get started, we got a great sponsor. It is Alio. My friends, we all know how the world has become increasingly divided, politically, socially, economically. But many of these divisions stem from a deeper misunderstanding of how money, markets, and policy actually work. Wouldn't it be great if there was an investment app that was designed by people who understand a macro perspective and how global events affect your finances? Now you can have the power in the palm of your hand with Alio Capital app, powered by Altitude AI, which identifies shifts in inflation, interest rates, and global risk, then adapts portfolios in real time. Alio is designed for hands-on or hands-off investors. Macro investing for people who want to understand the big picture. Download their app in the App Store or at Google Play, or text TIM to 511-511. That's ALLIO Capital. Text TIM to 511-511. Download the Alio app or text TIM. You guys get it. Investing involves risks, including potential for loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee results. See terms and conditions. Text fees may apply. This is a paid advertisement for Alio Capital. Shout out and thanks for sponsoring the show. We got another great sponsor, my friends. It is Beam Dream. Go to shopbeam.com. and use promo code TIMPOOL for 35% off your Beam Dream. This stuff helps you sleep. And my friends, I have been taking it every single night, and it is absolutely, unquestionably the best thing ever. I can't tell you how, and I mean this sincerely. Beam, I know you guys give me a script and all that, and you want to talk about how I feel. No, legit. We had a lot of late nights. We've been doing these Saturday shows. I need to make sure I get to sleep on time, and it's not always so easy because we'll get back. It's midnight, and I got to lay down, and I'm sitting there. So I get in. Every night for the show, I've been making a cup of this delicious Beam hot cocoa, and within 10, 15 minutes, I am out, deep sleep, and I'm hitting some of the best sleep numbers of my life. I got a 99 on my sleep score in the past couple of nights. It's been absolutely amazing. So guys, go to shopbeam.com, promo code TIM. This is basically a late night hot cocoa. It's got magnesium, it's got melatonin, it's got L-theanine, it's got a bunch of vitamins and other stuff, and it's good for you. It's great. No sugar. So I'm a big fan. Not some gimmicky quick fix like other sleep aids, and only 15 calories. Now, I'll add one thing. It's not It's not like it makes me feel groggy in the morning. Nothing like that. I wake up feeling like $1 million bucks, better than I felt in a long time because I'm getting good sleep. So shout out to Beam. Go to shopbeam.com. And also, my friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we got Steve Cortes.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here. First time. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Who are you? What do you do?
So, folks probably know me if they've seen a lot of cable news television over the years. I think I'm one of the only people, I think maybe the only person who's been a paid contributor to the top 4 cable news networks. So, yes, I actually worked for Fox News as well as CNN. My time at CNN, by the way, was at the request of President Trump. I deserved combat pay because behind enemy lines, it was not fun. Wow. I essentially did then what Scott Jennings does now. The reason that Donald Trump asked me to do that is because I worked on his campaigns in 2016 and 2020. So I'm a TV spokesman. I do media messaging, helped direct Hispanic outreach for the Trump campaigns in 2016 and 2020, worked for outside groups on behalf of Donald Trump in 2024. And currently I'm doing short documentaries, writing a lot of articles, still doing a lot of TV appearances and shows like yours, and promoting the message, getting ready for 2026 to try to win the midterm. So, I mean, I'm a campaign guy at heart, but care a lot about policy, too.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. We got Elaad. He's hanging out.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Cortes, we're really happy to have you on tonight. I've seen a lot of your work before, so really excited to get your expertise on a lot of different topics tonight. I am Timcast's White House correspondent and field reporter. Phil, how's it going?
How you doing, everybody? My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's get into it.
Here's the news. I call it news, but sure. We got this from the Post-Millennial. South Park features Cartman as Charlie Kirk in a new episode, and Charlie Kirk has changed his profile picture to Eric Cartman. This is amazing. It is crazy to see that CBS is spending $1.5 billion on this. So that $1.5 billion, $30 million per episode. And who is their target? It's obviously Donald Trump. He's the president. But for Charlie Kirk, congratulations, man. You made it. It's wild because I'm pretty sure South Park is older than Charlie is.
Yeah. By the way, so a huge win for Charlie Kirk, Chicago boy, like we are. We love to see Chicago boys do well, but more importantly for the country, I think the point is here, you're right, we are winning the culture war, right? When South Park feels that they need to mock a show host and a campaign operative, albeit a super important one, like Charlie Kirk. Also notable, CBS, let's remember, CBS had to pay a significant settlement to Donald Trump. I think a huge, huge win for accountability. I think one thing Trump is bringing in this second term is accountability. Whether it's accountability for media, whether it's accountability for people who perpetrated the Russia hoax, but accountability. So many Americans have been so frustrated because we've been told lies time and again and just told you have to accept it and you have to pretend it's the truth. Well, we're done with that. And Trump's the leader of that counter-revolution of saying, no, there will be revelations, there will be transparency, and there's going to be accountability.
So I'm interested, I want to push back on that idea that the right is winning, and only because I feel like the MAGA coalition is not just the right. So what would you say to someone that said, maybe the right isn't winning, but the left is losing? The left has lost a lot of people that used to be, the normie Democrats are leaving the left en masse, and you've got a lot of people that were, Democrats in the 90s that actually kind of created and started the MAGA coalition. So what would you say to that?
No, listen, I think it's both, right? And to me, it doesn't have to be either or. I don't think it has to be binary. It can be both and.
Sure.
Clearly, the Democrats have become so radicalized in the 2020s that they are totally inhospitable and unwelcoming to normal people. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that. It's one of the key reasons that they've lost the working class. It's not just about the economy. That's key. But it's also cultural issues, right? I mean, a lot of working class people are highly religious. They believe, for example, that there's two sexes. I mean, go figure. They don't like the Democratic Party that is obsessed with pronouns and forcing gender ideology and other crazy Marxist ideas down their throats.
I think their 35% approval rating, record low. I think that speaks to that.
Yeah, all-time low. Now, not all of them are MAGA populist right people, right? Some of them are, though, too, and some of them are also, it's not just the negative of being repelled by the Democrat Party. They're also attracted to a vision of muscular populist nationalism, right? And I believe that that's why right now, for example, in polling, and I do a lot of polling, Trump's best issue by a lot is immigration. It's where the media attacks him the most, right? And they think they're going to make hay, and yet it's actually his strongest issue. Because guess what? Controlling the border doesn't just make sense for our national security and our street safety. It's a huge economic issue. Working class people know they're having to endure unjust, unlawful competition in the labor market from millions and millions of illegals, and they've had enough of it.
I think one of the things that Democrats are particularly shocked by, and maybe you could speak to a little bit more on this, is that Hispanics seem to be not as unsympathetic towards other Hispanics being deported that maybe Democrats would have thought. So in the past, Democrats thought immediately if Trump were to increase funding for ICE and increase deportation numbers, that this would harm him with those communities. Maybe can you speak on that? As I understand, you did Hispanic outreach on one of the Trump campaigns.
Yes, actually, both in 2016 and 2020. No, I think this is one of the most amazing stories of the populist right movement, of the MAGA movement, is Hispanics coming en masse to the political right, and I think it's a lasting movement. But to that point of let me give the evidence. Last November, Trump nearly won Hispanics. We know this from the Pew Validated Voter Survey. He did win Hispanic men. He won Hispanic men nationwide. In the key areas, he won the overall Hispanic vote, like South Texas, a place that used to be overwhelmingly Democratic. Starr County, for example, which is 97% Hispanic, most Hispanic county in America on the U.S.-Mexico border. Hillary Clinton won it by 60%, 6-0 back in 2016. Trump won it by 16 this time. I mean, that's a mammoth move in just 3 cycles. And his signature issue is immigration. So to your point, to your question about, are Hispanics soft on the border? No, they actually believe in again, a muscular vision of sovereignty. They know that it protects their jobs, their street safety. And by the way, down there in Starr County, one of the things I made a documentary down there, I heard time and again, everyone has a friend or relative that works for Customs and Border Patrol down there because it's the most Hispanic agency of the federal government.
What do you think then caused that huge swing among Hispanics then? I don't know if you think it was immigration. Is there a particular issue that you think Democrats just absolutely dropped the ball on to reaching out to these voters with?
It was cultural radicalism, cultural liberalism from the left. So that was the sort of negative force, draining away Hispanic support for the Democrat Party, which traditionally was super strong. And then on the positive side, it was this vision that we will make life better for workers. It was a priority on workers because Hispanic men, for example, highest workforce participation rate of any group in America, something we should be really proud of. The most entrepreneurial demographic in America. We love to start new businesses. And Donald Trump came along and said, I'm going to make working class people the priority. I'm going to prioritize small business. And by the way, he didn't just say it, he delivered in his first term. 2019, by any metric, was the greatest year for workers in all of American history. Unfortunately, the COVID panic totally interrupted that progress. But 2019 is when we saw worker pay soar above inflation, meaning real wages accelerated. And the people who benefited the most were Hispanics, blacks, small business owners, all thrived. And so we've built this broad MAGA coalition now that's multiracial, multi-ethnic, and even geographically spread out, right, to the point where Trump was able to win the popular vote based on this vision. So now it's his job and our job to deliver on that promise again in this second term.
And now it looks like South Park is targeting the independent media space. It's targeting the coalitions that helped Donald Trump get elected. Fascinating that Charlie Kirk, with his campus outreach, is now a focal point for South Park.
Right.
I'm curious what you think it means. Aside from all the obvious general stuff, we had all these victories. Colbert gets canceled.
Yeah.
$30 million an episode gets given to South Park, and they immediately say, okay, we got to go after Charlie Kirk. We got to go after Donald Trump. Sounds to me like the anti-Trump machine that was spending the equivalent of one WNBA per year. That's what Sam Tripoli calls it. He calls it one WNBA per year to fund Colbert's show. And they said, we're not going to lose that money anymore. It's $40 to $50 million.
Right.
They give $1.5 billion to South Park. So I don't know how much money South Park is making. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that it's making a lot more than Colbert. Let's be real.
Sure.
But to cover the cost of $1.5 billion sounds to me like they said, go after the right and do it in a non-woke way, because woke is broken, woke isn't working.
Right.
It seems like with the Sydney Sweeney ad, they're realizing, okay, if we want to win power back, we got to get rid of this weird hall monitor garbage and try and be edgy again. So they're trying to now make the right once again the butt of the jokes. What do you guys agree?
I think being featured on South Park is a form of respect, even if they are insulting you. So to even be mentioned, I think, is a form of respect. It's not other, influencers, or I don't know what we want to call Charlie Kirk political commentators who are getting referenced
Charlie's
like this.
probably the most prominent conservative in the country right now.
Look, you don't get on South Park if you are irrelevant.
Right.
If you're not actually relevant to the culture, whether you're getting hate or especially when it's politically charged, you're going to get hate from the left. That comes with the territory. And South Park isn't going to take the time to not only put you on the show, but make Cartman the guy that's playing you in the show. Make Cartman one of the most important characters.
Right.
Generally, Cartman's looked at as the guy with the bad opinions, but even still, he's probably the funniest guy on South Park because he's the guy with the bad opinions. So yeah, it's whether you consider it a sign of respect or not, it just shows that Charlie's actually really hit a chord with pop culture.
Yeah. Charlie is in fact older than South Park. I didn't realize. He's 31. Oh yeah. I thought he was in his late 20s.
But it's a great point, because in politics, I'm a messaging guy, right, a media guy. In politics, to be ignored is death, right? So being attacked can be very powerful, and it's smart of Charlie, by the way, to embrace it, to say, heck yes, yeah, I'm Cartman, I'll make it my profile pic, run toward it, and revel in it.
That's why I say this is cultural victory.
Yeah.
The fact that for the longest time they were heavily criticizing independent media or just treating it as irrelevant. They were trying to just act like it was all corporate press. Now they're starting to recognize the real threat to their system is Charlie Kirk. It's independent media. And so the guys here are telling me that we're going to be made fun of by them at some point. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know that we're that relevant.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Goals.
Yeah,
But I did always wonder about that because, watching Family Guy or South Park or these other shows, they don't really talk about Rogan, right? Clearly one of the most influential guys, if not one of the most influential in politics, whether that's intention or not. They don't make it the butt of their jokes. They still talk about late night TV. It's funny when you watch these shows and they'll make fun of Colbert or Kimmel, and it's like those guys get a couple 100,000 hits. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering. We'll see, I guess.
Can I say one last thing on this, though? I do have an inkling that we are being trolled. Matt Stone and Trey Parker have a reputation for making episodes a week out or 6 days out from being able to air. And they also said at Comic-Con that the last promo that they made was just a bunch of random fake cutscenes that they spliced together because they didn't have enough time to create the actual episode. So in the past, they've always waited for the deadlines to do this. And it did look just like a random bunch of BS cutscenes thrown together. At the same time, I don't know who's riding whose coattails because they definitely knew that this would go viral on the political right. So we'll see if the episode ever comes out. I just wanted to add that in there in case we are getting trolled.
So here's what I want to mention. Did you guys know that there's never been a single episode of South Park targeting Joe Biden or Kamala Harris?
I wasn't
irrelevant.
Joe Biden was vice president for 8 years, and he was president for 4, and South Park did not ever mock Biden or Harris. And according to social media reports, I asked ChatGPT, it says the creators opted not to target Harris in the 2024 cycle.
Wow.
Funny, how about that?
Well, and in both cases, so much to make fun of, right? So much material there. In terms of Biden, his stumbling around, right? The clear cognitive issues. And it's not like, they were they thought that was mean, right? They have no problem being mean. And with Kamala, her word salads, right? All the rumors about her drinking. There's so many things that they could do, right? To dive in and be really funny in castigating these two, and the fact that they chose not to is pretty telling, right?
To a detriment. What's worse as a politician, to be hated or unknown, and it's to be unknown, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying it's funny because everybody's favorite Sam Cedar and all these liberals are like Tim Pool having a meltdown over South Park. I was like, I actually praised it. I said they were funny. I just said that the jokes the jokes they chose to go with were C- jokes.
Yeah,
they did this episode about. I'll give them this. South Park does an episode mocking Trump, and what's the joke? He's gay, and he's with Satan. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure every conservative is going to agree with that message about being gay is being devil worship or satanic and to be mocked. The idea that the way they make fun of Trump is to make him gay.
Right.
It's like, yeah, okay, being gay is something to make fun of, I guess. Right. South Park, if that's like, they attack the trans people. Now they're making fun of Trump, saying, haha, look, he's gay. And it's like, okay. All right. Like, this is where, think about this for a second. Our culture, the culture war has shifted so dramatically that if it is true that Paramount is trying to be anti-Trump in a non-edgy way, they like, the Sydney Sweeney ads, hilarious. They're basically like, let's just get like a white blonde chick with big boobs, and we're going to sell a bunch of merch, a bunch of clothes. It sounds like Paramount was like, okay, hall monitor, anti-racist, none of it worked. What do we do? And they're like, you've got to be offensive and edgy. So they've decided the strategy is going to be to make fun of people for being gay, to make fun of trans people. That's why I'm saying it feels like maybe we have not won the culture war, but we're certainly winning. When their attitude is, we have to make fun of Trump. How do we do it? Well, we can't call him racist or white supremacist because people don't respond to that. Make fun of him for being gay. People don't like that.
Right.
All right. Okay.
It means nature is healing, right? I mean, particularly the Sydney Sweeney ad, right? I mean, that tells us like nature is healing. Okay, we're going back to what we know works, what has worked for time immemorial, right? Like men love beautiful young women, especially if they're doing something funny, right? I mean, nature is healing. It's happening.
And I'm loving the meltdown too. Let's jump to the story from Time because it gets better. Stephen Colbert is practically daring CBS to shut him down early. Yeah, you can say that. Here's the way I'm going to describe it. Stephen Colbert is having what can only be described as one of the most epic temper tantrums ever seen in American public life. I mean, dude, you got canceled. And Time Magazine says that he's basically just going nuts on every single episode, going so heavy against his network that he's daring them to shut him down. And I'm like, no, he's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah. Like,
imagine dedicating 10 years of your life to being on the wrong side of every single issue. And then finally the network comes to you and says, you are fired. And not only that, think about it. Colbert goes to his agent and says, what can I do after this? And they're like, nothing.
Right.
Your whole career for 10 years is Trump is bad. That doesn't sell anymore. You are not a brand we can hire. And so he's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Do you blame him?
I mean, look, the protest about him drew like 20 people, I think, something like that. I forget what the name of the protest or whatever was. It drew like 20 people. He doesn't have the audience, and there are two things going on with the Colbert situation. First of all, he doesn't have the finger on the pulse of what is relevant anymore. Just going after Trump doesn't sell, clearly. But also, he's done this in a climate where people don't watch television anymore. They don't watch late night shows. All the late night shows are down. And granted, it's down because of the content, but it's also down because Netflix is a thing, and Paramount has their own channel, and Disney has their own channel, and YouTube, and all of these other options that people have. If they don't like exactly what you're producing, they're going to go somewhere else. And so, in this climate, to try and alienate half the population, it's a recipe for disaster. And I think Colbert's just the first one. I think more are going to fall.
Yeah, if you look in totality, for the first time now, streaming has surpassed linear television, right? Both broadcast and cable put together. It's been trending that way for a long time, but those lines have crossed, right? So, to your point that he was fighting uphill anyway. But when you fight uphill and you're just a scold and you're not funny at all, and you don't even try to be funny in a show that's supposed to be about levity and it's supposed to be sort of a break, let's have a laugh before you go to bed. I mean, that's traditionally what late night TV was. And it was really unifying in America at one point, right? Sort of the legends of late night, like Johnny Carson, they made fun of politicians occasionally, but they were very bipartisan, right, in their barbs, and it was great for America, and Americans loved it. Now, instead, we get this scold who is lecturing America, and Kimmel's the same, right? I mean, unfortunately, that late night mold has become a bunch of lefty nags, and nobody likes it, and nobody wants to hear that, especially before bedtime. So thankfully, it's not working.
200,000 people in the key demo like it.
Yeah, well,
and
that's nothing.
3 million boomers.
Right.
That's the crazy thing. The one age demographic from the Real Clear Politics aggregate that was anti-Trump. They went. It was 20 to 29. It's 30 to 39. The only decade, the age bracket was 70 plus. That was anti-Trump. Everybody else was pro-Trump, and they're watching Colbert.
Yeah.
And that's all they get. And it's remarkable. I can't imagine what must be going through the mind of your 75-year-old watching Colbert who's thinking, wow, look how bad Trump is. How could anyone like him? And then Trump wins the popular vote.
Right.
Weird reality.
It's kind of sad because I don't know if I'm the only one here, but I used to like his show like a decade ago, The Colbert Report, before he did the late night show.
When it was normal.
I don't know if I'm a sucker here because it was kind of just like a parody of Bill O'Reilly. I don't know what they were. I think that was the angle there, but I thought that was like really rich and funny and like I don't know. I was very young at the time too, but just to see this complete transformation, to see him be unrecognizable. He's a total actor though, and you don't really know what you're getting with this guy. Like I don't know who the real Stephen Colbert actually is. When we do see him behind the scenes, we see him dancing with Chuck Schumer. Right. So I'm just led to believe that he is a Democrat. He's also a practicing Roman Catholic, and I think he spoke about like significance of that.
That's why
in his work.
So pro-choice.
Like I feel like it's so interesting to see the ways that Catholicism manifests in our politics, because when I hear about Catholics, mostly you think of like the J.D. Vance types who not too long ago converted, but I feel like the average Catholic in our country is probably closer to Stephen Colbert. Frankly, for all I know.
Well,
to be fair,
I don't know.
Yeah, let me push back
please.
on that because I know these numbers cold. As a matter of fact, I just gave a speech on this topic last week in my work for Catholic Vote. So Trump carried Catholics by 12% nationally this time, and he tied among Catholics against Joe Biden. So one of the key reasons he did not win, that he was not already president in 2020, is because he tied. Now, Joe Biden, of course, presented himself as a Catholic president, as a Catholic candidate. I think it's a bunch of baloney, right? But nevertheless, it worked with a lot of Catholics. Trump won Catholics by +8 in 2016, tied in 2020, +12 this time. So the reason that he won the national popular vote is Catholics coming his way. Catholics are sort of the swingiest vote and also just a giant cohort. There's over 50 million Catholics in America. So I would say Catholics have moved way more toward Trump than they are toward Colbert.
But here's a question. Can you be pro-choice and be Catholic?
No, not legitimately.
So the point that he's making when he says Catholics are closer to Colbert, they're not Catholics.
People who identify themselves as Catholic.
Right.
You know, I think we get into like murky territory where we're judging. I'm not one to judge if somebody is
authentically.
And you were careful with your language there. Speaking about Joe Biden's religion, you said like what was it? Not pretending, but not
himself.
Presented. That was the word you used.
Yeah.
Presented as Catholic. Do you not believe that? I don't know that he is truly, because I mean I'm even looking at Stephen Colbert when he had the cross for Ash Wednesday. It is. So like, I feel like the average person who believes themselves to be Catholic in this country is pro-choice.
Okay, yes, this is an important distinction. So, by the way, those numbers I just gave you are people who identify as Catholic. And that, again, that's from the Pew Validated Voter Survey. So that's people who identify as Catholic. Trump was +12, right? That is not any reflection on whether or not they practice what they actually believe, right? That's not judging their Catholicism. It's just saying, do you identify as Catholic? That's it. Trump won +12, won overwhelmingly. If you then break it down to practicing Catholics and say, okay, do you go to church at least twice a month? Or do you believe in certain issues? Well, then Trump's percentages shoot into, I mean, he's literally in the 80s or even 90s. You know, then they poll and vote a lot more like evangelicals do, you know, frankly. So when there's a big difference between sort of cultural Catholics who identify as Catholic but don't necessarily practice the faith, and then actual practicing Catholics, and they obviously vote very differently. But the point is, when we group them all together, they have massively moved toward Trump, toward America First, and by the way, also on immigration, because the Catholic bishops have been very, very anti-Trump, very pro-illegal migrant. The Catholics in the pews simply don't believe that. I mean, again, just the election last November, but also all the polling shows that. So it's a significant issue, and it's a fascinating issue. But when people like Colbert and Joe Biden try to wear their Catholicism on their sleeve, I think believing Catholics recognize immediately it's complete hypocrisy. It's not genuine. It's not accurate. And they're trying to do it for either political or media benefits, not from their heart.
If I could have one follow-up on the Catholicism issue, because I do think this is really important, how it manifests in our country. And as I understand it, because again, I'm Jewish, so I'm 1,000 miles away from this, there seems to be a disconnect between global Catholicism and the Catholic Church. And like those at the top compared to those in America. I don't know, is there a unique brand? Do you feel as though there's a unique brand of American Catholicism, or does it manifest differently than the ways it manifests in South America, or even, I don't know, out in Italy at the Vatican, and how the Pope speaks about these issues? Because writ large, as I understand them, very pro-immigrant sentiment. And, and that's different, as I understand, American Catholics believing is that manifest. So I don't know. Does that make sense there? And
Yeah, no,
am I observing a real phenomena?
No, it's an excellent look. When you're talking about a faith with over 1 billion adherents that's truly global, of course, there's a massive amount of diversity and complexity, and a lot of it's geographic. The American practicing American Catholics politically are definitely to the right of most of the hierarchy in Rome. I mean, that's just a fair, objective statement to observe. But it's also fascinating that we now have an American Pope, right, for the first time ever, which I think most American Catholics, most Americans, period, thought was an impossibility, thought could never happen. And he doesn't exactly seem to be right-wing, or I wouldn't call him conservative, but compared to Francis, massively so, right? And certainly not anti-American in any sense. Somebody who came from Chicago, who came from the United States, and loves this country. So it's an interesting moment. And when you have an American Pope, and you have at least the potential for J.D. Vance, our deeply Catholic vice president, to become the president of the United States, perhaps, coming up, it's interesting. There's an American Catholic moment that's pretty historic.
Catholics have come a long way in our country.
Yeah.
Maybe because, I don't know, the history of Catholics here, they used to be persecuted here, so
Sure.
obviously came a long way.
Yeah.
Sorry for you with this. We were pivoted hard there, but...
Yep. Anyway, Stephen Colbert, wow, he's crazy.
Crazy Catholic.
Well, I mean, he's just
Certainly not.
I don't think look, I mean, you were talking about earlier not judging someone, judging what they believe in their heart and stuff. Look, if you're going to say you're a Catholic, but you don't do the things the Catholics do, then you're not a Catholic. People should be judged by their works, not by their words. It's very easy to give lip service to whatever it is, to a religion or what have you, or to an ideology. But what people do is what they really believe. And if you are voting for people because you think that it's important for abortion to be legal, that is not a Catholic. And I'm not even a Catholic, but it's pretty easy to tell.
Let's jump to this next story, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start off by saying this. Israel, as far as it goes with PR in the United States, is cooked. Seth Meyers gets serious in call for U.S. aid to Gaza if even Trump acknowledged their starvation. It's long past time to act. We are appalled by the unspeakable horrors currently unfolding in Gaza. This coming from Late Night with Seth Meyers. And I don't care what you think about the whole issue. What's fascinating to me is that corporate liberal media activism is anti-Israel. Donald Trump is critical of Israel right now on social media. There's a massive spattering of anti-Israel commentary on the rise. And I've been saying this for some time now, but with this to me is the nail in the coffin for pro-Israel sentiment in the United States. I don't see how you recover from corporate left, woke left, and dissident right all being critical of Israel and the minority faction trying to be pro-Israel.
I mean, look, the whole, even if Trump acknowledged their salvation, it kind of fits the leftist narrative about Trump. If he's actually Hitler, siding with Gaza makes more sense than siding with Israel, doesn't it? I mean...
Well, the left siding with Trump is strange.
No, I mean...
This is the point. If Trump does it, it's wrong. This time,
yes.
Trump is not wrong. Seth Meyers is agreeing with Donald Trump on the issue of Israel. When that happens... And what we're seeing with Gen Z, plus, didn't Charlie Kirk do some sit down with Gen Z guys about Jews? And I think the narrative is there.
Yeah. No.
This country is, we looked at the Pew Research data. The key demo is anti-Israel, left and right. Mm-hmm. And now Trump is actually seeing Seth Meyers agree with him.
Yeah. I think where Trump is right now, which I totally understand, is he is seriously pro-Israel, but he's also very frustrated with Netanyahu, which I think is totally understandable and justifiable at this point, right? That Netanyahu has been, at best, a difficult ally lately. And I think that's why Trump is where he is. Now, what you're talking about, though, Tim, with Gen Z is, they're not where Trump is. They're actively anti-Israel. It's an entirely different point of view and worldview. And I do think, look, if I were Israel, I'd be concerned about this because the United States is obviously its most key ally. And when you look at young Americans, they are very disaffected with Israel right now. And I think people like Netanyahu need to ask themselves why and how can they try to change that, because they're not only trying to please their own people, but also the United States.
Yeah, I mean, look, Israel has done really poorly when it comes to the narrative, the online narrative kind of whatever you want to call it, about the Gaza war or the situation in Gaza. I personally don't put a lot of credibility in things that are coming out of Gaza because I don't trust Hamas, and Hamas is still the authority in Gaza. But Israel is definitely, flattened cities in Gaza. So if you're going to initiate a war like that, you have to be prepared to produce propaganda that supports your position. And Israel has not done that. They've really dropped the ball on that. What do you got to say there, Elaad? Come on. I know what you're thinking.
I think despite media narratives and media spins and Hamas and fake news coming out of Hamas, that the Israelis should not be dissuaded from finishing the job in Gaza.
What does it have to do without our money?
With or without our money, I think.
Agreed. And
Israel needs to finish the job.
And they'll have to do it without our money. That's the point.
Well, right now they're doing it with our support.
And I'm saying my point is that it's gone. I don't see how this sustains itself when Pew Research puts out this data showing 53% of people in the United States have a negative view of Israel, and it is so I don't know what the right is. It is so extreme that Seth Meyers has said Trump is right. Mm-hmm. Like when you get liberal late night talk shows being like, wait, Trump's actually right about this. It's like, wow, holy crap.
So, like, if the difference is, good media coverage and your state constantly being at risk and bad media coverage and security for your state, I think Israelis should pick the latter. It seems as though...
Agreed, and then we stop paying for it. Because when the American people, when the sentiment continues to spoil, this is the point, right? When the sentiment continually goes negative, members of Congress are going to be like, I'm not going to be on their side. I'm going to get blasted in my meetings. So I'll just come out against them. Then when it comes for the vote, look at AOC. She voted to provide defensive funding for Israel, and they attacked her for it. So we are getting very, very close in the next few years to U.S. Congress being like, we are no longer going to risk our seats in Congress for supporting a foreign country.
I may submit to you that may be true. I think polling on this is fickle. I think we're being manipulated by false images that, for example, the New York Times even came out today and described some of their images as being incorrect or putting them up with misleading information about it. But I think Israel should continue fighting its battles despite that. I think there's been a long history.
I hear you, but you're not addressing what we're talking about.
No, I am. I said despite.
The question of whether or not Israel should or shouldn't do something is not the subject.
I think they should do things despite the bad media coverage that they're getting. You're saying that they're losing support in the United States.
My point is that it is now the popular mainstream narrative in the United States that Israel bad.
I don't think that's as true as people in the media will like you to believe.
I'm not making this up. Pew Research, 53% negative view of Israel, and getting worse, to the point where Seth Meyers is agreeing with Donald Trump. You then changing the subject to Israel should continue its war has nothing to do with the content.
No, so despite despite it becoming increasingly partisan of an issue, I think the Israelis should continue to finish their work in Gaza.
In which case, if your argument is that they're putting up fake images or whatever it may be, that means just Israel's losing.
I just don't think that the Israeli government should be swayed by bad media coverage.
Let me ask you this, because I fully agree that Israel should do whatever it thinks it needs to do in its national security and its defense of its citizens, right? Absolutely. But the state of Israel has now existed, the modern state of Israel, for 80 years. Should it continue to receive benefits and aid from the United States when the average Israeli lives better than the average American right now? This is a sophisticated, wealthy country. Aren't they capable now of standing on their own 2 feet and handling their own security without American charity, essentially?
So I'll answer that in a very honest way.
Yeah.
So for the past 40 some odd years, we have been significantly supporting the state of Israel, but it's existed the 40 years prior to that without our support, actually, from originally support from the USSR. And I will say, I will push back against the Israelis are living better than us Americans. We don't have socialized healthcare in America because socialized healthcare is actually bad for people. People don't get good coverage through their socialized medicine. People in Israel, I know we like to say that we don't want, wait, if I can finish,
sure.
We don't want Americans dying in Israel. I know you didn't say that, but that's a common sentiment. I feel like it's so ironic given it's one of our only allies that actually has a military draft and actually routinely fights their own battle. People in the military, the Navy, in the Army in the United States actually respect that of Israelis, that they actually do fight their own wars. So we give benefits to a lot of different countries, and I think people tend to single out Israel for one reason or another. We currently have 30 some odd Americans sitting as cannon fodder right now in South Korea. Their sole purpose is there to be cannon fodder. The same thing in Germany.
Yeah, by the way,
I don't know.
say
Why
the
should
same
we go
about
down?
both those countries? Yeah, absolutely.
No, I mean, well, I just respond to that by saying I think Americans benefit immensely from both soft and hard power. We are the global shot callers, and it's to the benefit of Americans. And I feel like it really embodies the American spirit, too. I think American hegemony is good, and if American hegemony retracts, it's going to be other communist Chinese influences or Russian influences or Islamist influences that fills the gap, is my wider perspective.
I think over the past couple of years, there's been a narrative battle happening in the United States on the issue largely of Israel, and Israel's been losing. It's been getting beaten, mercilessly in this narrative machine, and that's it. I predicted 10 years, especially with Gen Z's view of Israel. There's not going to be any more foreign spending for this country.
I think there's such a contradiction between the far left that hates Israel and the far right that also dislikes Israel, because they hate Israel for so many different reasons. The far left in our country largely hates Israel, as I understand, because they view Israel and Israelis and Jews as white people, and they view the Palestinians as brown, and they project their racial biases onto the Israeli conflict as such. And that's really all they see. There's also like this socialist tinge of the far left socialists believing that Jews are landlords and inherently privileged, and then being against Jews writ large for that purpose. And then on the far right, they hate Jews for or hate the state of Israel for totally different reasons. They're not projecting any racial,
What about Seth Meyers?
I don't know why Seth Meyers is. I don't even know what he actually said on the issue.
The narrative is that Israel is starving Gazans.
Well,
and so they need humanitarian aid because Israel's cut off their access to food.
Look, I think that Islamists are really good at manipulating impressionable Westerners. I think Hamas knows exactly what they're doing.
And Israel's really bad at countering it?
No, I think that Hamas is willing to use dead children for their political gain. They actually want more dead children to occur. They want to hide behind these people, so when they inevitably do get attacked, that they could parade these dead bodies around. I think it's actually disgusting, and it might set the stage for future enemies of our country trying to use these tactics. It's disgusting.
Sure. But my point is that Israel seemingly is incapable of defending itself from these psyops.
Oh.
I mean, if Israel is losing this war right now, then I don't know what, winning.
Again, we're talking about media optics in the United States, and we're talking about the president of the United States agreeing we need food banks set up in Gaza because of what Israel's doing. He says he's fed up with Netanyahu. Seth Meyers agrees with him. The point is, they've lost you're calling it a fake campaign and propping up dead bodies. So if it's a psyop, they've been defeated.
I think that Islamists are effectively manipulating impressionable Westerners. Yeah, and it's a big issue.
You think it's just Islamists?
I think those are the people in the Middle East who are manipulating those sentiments. Yeah, very cynically. And I think Western liberals are very easily manipulated, frankly.
Yeah, I do think you have a point about Hamas. Like, Hamas is not where you should be getting your information about the war in.
Well, these are just poor brown people that white people are abusing, and then these self-loathing white liberals.
Hold on. That's broadly a leftist perspective. That's not so much about the Islamists or Hamas. Hamas globs onto that narrative because it's effective in the West. But if they were talking to people that aren't in the West, they just call the Jews demons. Like if you're talking to people in Kazakhstan or whatever, because there's a lot of places where Israel and Jewish people are looked at as the bad guy. I mean, you look at the joke in Borat, throw the Jew down the well that you sing in the song. Like that's something that's all over the world, and the way that they use the narrative in the U.S. is one thing, but to them, it's not about any kind of political or that kind of dynamic at all. So.
I want to jump to this. We have breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. When the show first launched, we mentioned there was an 8.0 earthquake near Russia, and that there was a tsunami, not a warning at the time, but what do they have it listed as? I forgot what the issue was. It wasn't a warning, but now we've got a tsunami watch for Alaska, and they've upgraded the earthquake to an 8.7.
It's big.
So my understanding is an 8.7 is exponentially larger than 8.0. Fox Weather says parts of Alaska are under tsunami warnings, while the entire U.S. West Coast and the state of Hawaii are under tsunami watches after a monster 8.7 earthquake struck off the east coast of Russia. We've got this tweet here from Space Weather News. You know him, you love him, Ben Davidson. Says after a magnitude 8 earthquake near Kamchatka a few minutes ago, the entire North Pacific is vibrating. Yo, this is crazy. And then, of course, this breaking news came in just about 20 minutes ago. USGS has upgraded it to an 8.7. Grok says the magnitude scale is logarithmic. An 8.7 earthquake releases 11 times more energy than an 8, with ground motion roughly 5 times stronger, making it significantly more destructive, especially for tsunamis and damage in populated areas. So this is absolutely insane. And I hope everybody's paying attention because, again, it was like an alert earlier for Hawaii, and now it's a watch. And for Alaska, it's a warning. So that sounds like they're saying we're seeing it coming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to Hawaii, I think it's something like 6 hours to get from where the epicenter of the earthquake was until Hawaii. So we won't know if there's, significant repercussions in Hawaii, but it will be obviously significantly shorter in Alaska. Which,
So, it was an advisory at first, but it's been upgraded to a warning. So I hope everybody, if you're in the Aleutians, if you're in the area, please pay attention.
Yeah, and if I understand correctly, and the chat will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but if I understand correctly, watches are when it's possible. Warning is when they've seen an actual tsunami. So there is one going to the Aleutians now.
Let's play this clip.
If you've been with us,
here we go.
An earthquake. If you've been with us, I was trying to explain this. This animation tells you a whole lot more, but how the plates move, how the seafloor moves, that's going to dictate how much displacement of water there is, how much water is moved, and how big of a tsunami could be generated. We've seen at times, I was trying to think back to when that was. I think it was in the Western Caribbean or Southern Gulf. We had a fairly high magnitude earthquake. It didn't produce a tsunami because it was a strike slip. It was rock sliding horizontally
is this an old,
across
this is a video
each other,
from the old story?
and there's no vertical displacement of water in that setting. So I was wondering, was this scenario like that? It appears not. This would be more of a normal earthquake fault where some of the rock itself shifted up, some of it shifted down in that fault. There's the displacement of water, and that wave propagates out from where the earthquake happened.
So that was, I believe this
finds its way closer to land.
That video is from the Alaska earthquake, not from the current earthquake. But I don't know. It's not a cultural, political news event that we normally jump into, but I thought it was important considering this is 8.7 ain't no joke.
Yeah, it's a big earthquake. When I was in Japan in 2011 for the Fukushima or the earthquake that hit Fukushima, that was a 9.0, and I mean 20,000 people died in Sendai alone. Wow. So it was massive.
You were in Japan when that went down?
I was in Japan in 2011, in March 2011 when that happened. Yeah,
wow.
It was crazy.
Was it scary where you were?
I was in Tokyo, so where we were, it was about a 5.5. But it shook the whole building, and I mean, we were in probably on the 6th or 7th floor doing sound check before the show. My tour manager sticks his head in, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy, but like we're in Japan. That's the Ring of Fire. They build the buildings, to withstand this kind of stuff. I was like, if there's a problem, one of the Japanese guys will come and they'll let us know. And just as I was saying that, a Japanese guy came around the corner. He was like, we got to get out of here. And so we all start hauling out, and everybody basically filtered out into the street, and we're all kind of standing around for, I don't know, a couple hours. We had just maybe an hour or so before, hour and a half, something like that, gotten off the bullet train, and we heard that the bullet train derailed, and a lot of people on that particular train died and stuff. And so we really
this is big, actually. This earthquake may be the 8th or 9th largest earthquake in recorded history.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
so the 10th biggest is an 8.6. In 2012, part of a lesser-known cluster of large Sumatra events. Number 9 is Assam, Tibet, massive Himalayan region quake. It was an 8.6 or 8.7. So, and 8, Rat Island in the Aleutians in 1965 was an 8.7. So this ties for eighth biggest earthquake in recorded history. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's no joke. That an 8.7 is really, really huge.
Wow.
Hope
Godspeed.
everybody in Hawaii gets to somewhere safe and follows all local news direction. I hope they are able to get the message despite NPR's defunding.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to the next story here. We've got this from the Post Millennial. Shane Tamura went up the wrong elevator bank in an attempt to target NFL offices in mass shooting. Now, the official narrative has not been determined as to why this man, I believe he's half black, half Japanese, why he carried out these shootings. Though they claim they found a letter in his pocket that said that he was upset with the NFL. Additionally, there have been some activists that pointed out the address in question he went to, the Blackstone building, was the target of Globalize the Intifada activists over the past several years. He didn't go to the NFL floor. He went to the Blackstone floor, and he shot and killed an executive with Blackstone, and as well as injuring an NFL employee. So the conspiracy theory that we're seeing online is, in fact, his motivation was the anti-Israel protests. His motivation was the growing Intifada protest movement. It was, Zoran Mamdani, who has said globalize the Intifada. And I'm going to stress this because everyone gets so partisan on this one. I'm not saying this to be pro or anti. I don't care. The point is, there's a question as to whether or not it makes more sense that this guy was blaming the NFL, who he's never interacted with, or if he was going to Blackstone, targeting Blackstone for financial activist reasons or for Israeli activist reasons. And I'll give you a few examples. The New York Times published this in May 6th. Blackstone president donates $125 million to Israeli medical school, the largest in Tel Aviv University history. And one of the individuals who was killed, a Jewish philanthropist, Wesley Lepatner, 43, was named as a victim. Now, it is true that an NFL employee was seriously injured and is critical. Online, there's speculation that the true motivation was the anti-Israel sentiment. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll start it off just by saying, I was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, so what do you think happened? And I'm like, I don't know of any large movements against the NFL to take weapons and go to their offices and hurt them. So it's strange that a crazy person would do that. But it's if they were to come out and say his motivation was Israel criticism or Israel genocide or Intifada, we'd go, of course. Yeah. Because of the wave of protests, we had the 2 embassy employees who were killed already. That lines up perfectly with the actions that he took. The NFL one does not.
Yeah. Look, all the information that I've seen was that he was mentally ill, that he had CTE. Those things are the actual reasons that I've seen. So I don't think that this was, obviously anytime someone goes and does a mass shooting, you're questioning their attachment to reality. But this seems pretty clear that it wasn't motivated by any kind of political stuff. It's
Why?
Pardon me?
How is it clear?
Because he actually wrote out what he was actually.
Yeah, according to the reporting, he blamed the NFL for his CTE because he played football. Now, he also played 2 years of high school football, okay? So, that's a ludicrous notion. But if he's mentally ill, maybe he believes that, right? And
you believe that there was actually a note in his pocket that said, I blame the NFL?
Right. We don't know, clearly, right?
I'm just,
let me ask you this. Why does he need that cover then, effectively, if there was
believe that he actually killed anyone? We saw it on the internet.
So, I'm leaning towards crazy people do crazy things, However, the online theorists, and I want to stress this too because they haven't released an official motive. This is not a formalized declaration by law enforcement. Eric Adams just said they found a note in his pocket that says you can't go up against the NFL or whatever. But the theory is this guy was directly targeting Blackstone, a powerful financial organization with investments in tons of corporations that has been routinely called out for jacking up the price of homes as one of the largest global holdings of real estate. The offices that this man went to was Blackstone and a real estate holding office, and the woman that he shot was part of their real estate investment group. When you look at all of the pieces to the theory about this being targeting Blackstone, the pieces there's a lot of okay, that makes sense. When you look at NFL, it's like the only explanation is he was crazy. And quite possibly true. Quite possibly true. The argument is that if they were to come out and say this guy was motivated by Globalize the Intifada, one, it's damaging to Zoran Mamdani over that whole fiasco because he refused to denounce it. And there's fears that it would launch copycats because of the massive online sentiment against Israel and Jews right now.
We are in the age of vigilante justice because the information's
From the left, but
writ large. We're in the era of vigilante justice. People feel confident shooting at healthcare CEOs or Pennsylvania governors or Minneapolis politicians or whatnot. And it's kind of a choose your own narrative here. You could make this story whatever you want it to be. There's so many different angles where you could say there's so many different interests at play. The NFL definitely doesn't want us to talk about how CTE is common throughout football players, and like banging your head against one another probably isn't the healthiest thing to do. And that's coming from a former JV football player. And like, I don't know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell me that, hey, if we bang our heads together really hard and fast and repetitively, that it could probably scramble your brains a little bit. Politically, it would be damaging for the globalize the Intifada people. It could just be, I mean, it's pick your conspiracy. It could be the FBI just sent somebody in to try to make some more anti-gun legislation. So it's really difficult.
Yeah, but let me first. The reason why I think this is worth discussing is that we don't know his motivation.
Well, it's allegedly he had an alleged note.
There is no official formal declaration of motivation. The law enforcement has not come out. This is what I find fascinating is you guys are citing media reports from unnamed sources.
I mean, I'm citing media. I'm citing the stuff that I've read.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's just as likely as like that he might be a pro-Palestine guy.
Sure. And my point is, you said it seems likely that he was motivated by the NFL. It's like, well, they haven't released his motive yet.
I said seems likely because of the fact that I've seen stuff that there was a note in his pocket. That to me seems likely because he went to go to the NFL.
He didn't though. So here's my issue: a guy shows up to Blackstone's building, kills a Blackstone executive, goes to Blackstone's real estate floor, shoots shoots at people on Blackstone's floor, and then some unnamed sources say he was mad at football, and everyone's like, that explains it. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What's going on here? A guy went to a Blackstone office, killed a Blackstone executive, got in an elevator up to the Blackstone 32nd and 33rd floors, was shooting at employees of their real estate holdings division, and then the media launched these unnamed sources, and I'm being told that it's the NFL. And I'm like, well, law enforcement hasn't put out his motivation yet. If the cops come out and say we found evidence to conclude that this guy was just a crazy guy with CTE who was targeting the NFL, I'll say, yeah, okay. I mean, I'll lean a little bit in that direction because that's at least what we're hearing somewhat. But if we look at what it was reported that he did, he killed a Blackstone executive in the Blackstone building and then went to the Blackstone floor targeting Blackstone employees.
According to Eric Adams, he mistakenly went to the
right, and the source of that was two unnamed sources speaking with the press on the condition of anonymity.
By the way, though, too, if the narrative is that it's anti-football and that football is dangerous, the corporate media is grabbing onto that immediately. Why? Because they hate football. Because football is uniquely masculine and American. No, really. I mean, there's a massive movement among those types, ruling class people, including the corporate media, against playing football in this country. So if they think they can grab onto that, whether it's true or not, they're going to run with that narrative. And by the way, I will certainly defend football. Football is very worthy of American young men playing.
But it is violent and dangerous and can cause CTE.
Yes, all of that is true. Playing high school, there's no significant data that playing high school football leads to, in any significant measure, to CTE. I mean, that is also, demonstrably true. But are there risks? Of course. Just as there's risk to playing hockey, there's risk to playing soccer to your head by hitting the soccer ball, right? It's actually quite dangerous for your brain. So there's risk to all sports. But getting back to this case, let me ask you this, Tim. What would be the motivation of the NYPD on the scene to do something that is defensive of Mamdani? In other words, why would they want to cover for a possible incoming mayor who the police hate?
They wouldn't.
Okay, so who would then?
Unnamed sources talking to the press claimed he had a note in his pocket.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that whole part's just manufactured.
No, I'm saying when the media comes out, here's what I'm saying. I'm saying this. I have no idea what his motivation was. What we know is that a guy went to a Blackstone office, shot a Blackstone executive responsible for who was in their real estate division, went up to a real estate holdings floor, which includes Blackstone, and again shot people. And then we got from the corporate press that unnamed sources said he had a note in his pocket blaming the NFL. And I got a chat full of people right now saying, yep, that's true. So you guys in the chat right now just saying the mainstream media's unnamed sources are correct? You're right. Trump is a Russian agent. Are you kidding me? So when we get this story and I wake up in the morning, I look at the news and it says he had a note in his pocket blaming the NFL. I went, wow, that's crazy. And then I read it and said 2 unnamed sources say, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, as of right now, law enforcement has not released a motive. So where did this narrative come from, and why is everyone latched onto it as if it's a fact?
Well, and what I'm telling you is that the corporate media, if that is manufactured, in fact, the corporate media would concoct that in a second, because they would say, wow, he shot someone from the NFL, right? Why would he hate the NFL? Let's say he has CTE, because we hate football, because we want football to go away. I'm saying I don't think that's an implausible motivation if, in fact, it's a manufactured story.
So my question for y'all in chat watching right now is, with law enforcement saying there's no evidence of an official motive, do you believe the media narrative that provided by unnamed sources and reiterated by Mayor Eric Adams, that it was a guy who never associated with the NFL? And I'm not saying that facetiously. It's a guy who played a couple years of high school football and then went to the NFL offices, shot a Blackstone executive, got in the wrong elevator, and then took his own life, accidentally going to the Blackstone offices. Is that what happened? Honest question.
Well, I mean,
According to the media, so far from the reports that we have, it seems more or less that
we don't.
He accidentally went to
thing,
Blackstone.
As of
I
right
think
now,
it
we
gets to
can't
a
say.
larger point that none of us believe the official narrative we're going to be told, right? I mean, and that's the sad place of American society. And unfortunately,
pick your own narrative, yeah.
Well, but unfortunately, it's because so much law enforcement, particularly federal law enforcement, I love cops, love beat cops on the street, but federal law enforcement has been so corrupted and poisoned and politicized that we simply don't believe these institutions that we formerly, held in high regard, particularly the FBI. So, I mean, I think this is what we're talking about here is unfortunately reflective of that larger reality of, just disbelief of whatever we're told. Is it true? I don't know, even if it's official. Now, in this case, too, we're talking about reporting, which is a whole other level of natural skepticism, which is very proper. But, the point is, for example, how many people do you know who believe that we know the full truth about the mass Las Vegas shooting, right?
Oh, we never got any of that.
It seems no one believes that we know the full truth. No one that I know.
That's because that many guns are heavy.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, there's all kinds of reasons, but the point is, I don't know anyone who believes,
Here's where, let me tell you where I'm coming from. I was out yesterday. Obviously, I was sick. And I'm watching the news, and the initial reporting is a guy walks into the Blackstone building, shoots and kills a Blackstone executive, goes up to the real estate holdings office, and is targeting more people. And then I was like, holy crap. Remember how we've been talking about for years how Blackstone is buying up houses? According to Fast Company, a year and a half ago, Blackstone is back to being a top player in the housing market. Here are the numbers. A story that we've covered routinely was how Blackstone would there would be like a young Gen Z couple trying to buy a house, and then all of a sudden the seller would say Blackstone came in 20% above market, and they'd sell it, driving the prices way up and keeping young people out of the market. And what would we say the whole time? You will own nothing and you will be happy. That was the agenda. So then when I hear a story about a guy going to the Blackstone offices, again, killing a Blackstone executive who specifically worked in real estate, then going up to a real estate office, which also it was a real estate company and it was Blackstone, I was like, holy crap. It sounds like this lines up with what we'd expect from online activism, the conspiracy community. And then the morning when I woke up, they said, nah, he was just a guy who thought the NFL was bad, and he accidentally went to the wrong floor. And I was like, well, that doesn't add up to anything. I mean, that doesn't fit any online activism communities. How was he radicalized into deciding to shoot NFL people? Why would I assume that's true? And then the reports were that it was unnamed sources. Throughout the day, however, everybody's been pushing that narrative, assuming that's the case. And as of right now, law enforcement has not stated they know of what his motivation was. So I find it interesting that there's this split, and people are really trying hard to say, no, it's just big football is dangerous. And there's, I find it hard to believe that, when you look at the mass shootings we've had in the past, the motivations line up in some degree. So you had the transgender lunatic, went to a Catholic school and targeted Christians, blamed them and wrote this stuff down. You had, obviously if you go back further, you have Orlando, you have the shooting of the congressional baseball game. It seems to be that the motivations line up with something tangible in politics and culture. The NFL? You can't go up against the NFL? I mean, I just find the whole thing to be very weird, to be honest. And again, I'll stress this. When law enforcement comes out and says, no, we do believe based on the evidence, this is the official narrative, the official motivation, I'll say, okay, sure, y'all are right. But I'm just stressing, right now, there's no official motivation as per law enforcement, only these unnamed media reports. And there are people desperately in the chat right now saying it was the NFL. And I'm like, oh, okay. I got to be honest, I've never heard of this before in my life. Have you guys? That like the NFL is running a conspiracy to destroy people who suffer from CTE?
Well, there is a significant propaganda campaign against football, yes. And really it's particularly been pronounced since that Will Smith movie Concussion, right? But try to scare people into believing that playing football means, you're going to be...
But my point specifically is, I mean this sincerely, is there a conspiracy theory or, not a conspiracy theory, but like a contention about NFL targeting people suffering from CTE in their high schools to stop them from hurting the reputation of football?
I guess the idea would be that the NFL didn't properly talk about the risk that playing football can bring, which includes CTE, would be the argument from the...
He didn't associate with the NFL or play with the NFL or do anything related to the NFL.
Just
well,
I mean, look, my money's on, and this is just an opinion, but I think that it's just mental illness, that he had a psychotic break and that he imagined that the situation was as he's said. So that's just, again, this is only based on the things that I know, and it's only an opinion. It's not that I have.
Someone helped him get. Eric Adams gave a press conference where he said one of the components of the rifle that he used was purchased for him by somebody else in Nevada. I'm not sure who.
Could be.
And that he had a permit in Vegas, in Nevada, and that's where he was able to acquire the weapon, and then came to New York. I also find it just strange that someone from Nevada would plan this whole thing out and then go to the wrong floor. Maybe. I mean, maybe.
I will say Manhattan buildings are very confusing, and in many of these big towers, there are dozens of different businesses. I would be surprised if it's only Blackstone and the NFL in that building.
Yeah, there's like KMPGM or something like that. Some other
if a building has 50 floors,
that building is a full city block.
So
it's massive.
There's tons of different businesses in there. I want to believe that we aren't seeing more targeted killings of Jews. She was a UJA president, or she worked at a Jewish foundation too. And I don't know. I hope that's not true. I hope we're not seeing the normalization of this in New York City, in Manhattan, in Pennsylvania, in too many places to name.
When I look on the surface, there's like I mentioned the shooting in Tennessee, motivated by woke leftism, and they withheld the information. Yeah. Is it, and I'm asking you guys sincerely, when we get these mass shootings, do they typically release the motivation on like day one, like within 3 or 4 hours of?
Honestly, it depends on what the motivation is. Dylan Roof, it was right away.
Right. If it's a right wing thing, they release it, but it's a left wing thing, they don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the practice.
If they chant something at the shooting, then they'll talk about it sooner. If there's a manifesto, sometimes they'll try to withhold it and withhold the details, I feel like, for as long as they can.
Unless it's right wing.
Unless it's right wing, or unless the shooter did something during the shooting to make it obvious. So I feel like it's a case by case.
They were saying it was a white male at first, too.
Yeah.
By the way, regarding that horrific Nashville shooting
though.
At Covenant School, the only reason that finally we did get full transparency is because a local radio host, Michael Patrick Leahy, sued for it, thankfully, successfully sued, and said this must be public. By the way, there was no law enforcement was trying to claim that they needed it to keep it private to investigate. Well, the shooter was dead, all right? So there's nothing to investigate in terms of they don't have to prepare for trial. They don't have to worry about evidence. It should have been released immediately. The only reason it wasn't is because in a very conservative state of Tennessee, where I live, the one liberal bastion is Nashville, right? And the Nashville authorities simply did not want it out that this was a trans person upset at her Christian school that didn't approve of her lifestyle choices. And she went back there and slaughtered children because of it. And that wasn't a ruling class narrative that is approved and that can get out, right? Had it been a situation like the terrible situation in South Carolina, Dylan Roof killing black people in a black church, it's out immediately.
He also lived, so he kind of said that exactly what he did and why. So if that's the case, then you'll know pretty quickly as well.
This is interesting because someone super chatted this. They said, because I wasn't, I got to be honest, last night I was in bed watching Fox News literally all day. That's all I was doing. Gotta love Fox. And It's Time to Stand says, what about the woman on video in New York who said the shooter was screaming "Free Palestine"? And so I looked it up, and even Laura Loomer tweeted, yes, we get it, Free Palestine is a mental disorder, as if that was it. Witnesses say the suspect yelled, "Free Palestine, I'm not the shooter," while armed with an AR-15. And this is a wrong person. There's images of NYPD arresting a guy, and it's a guy. He's like, I'm not the shooter. So I think people can. I think the NYPD arrested a guy, but it was not the shooter. And the guy who wasn't the shooter who got arrested did yell "Free Palestine," and now people think the shooter was yelling "Free Palestine." I think that's what happened. Just based off what I'm looking at right now on X, it looks like initially the cops arrested a different person, and people thought he was the shooter. I don't know, man. Y'all decide, I guess.
In the IRL Slack, there's a link. There's a tsunami hitting Russia right now.
Wow. Wait.
A few minutes ago.
The tsunami has hit
Kursk, I believe.
Wow, there it is. All right, man. I hope everybody in Alaska is paying attention and safe.
Get to high ground.
That is crazy.
Wow.
Yep. And people don't understand. They think, from movies, tsunamis are these gigantic waves that come over your city. It's basically just the whole water levels rising rapidly and flowing in. And what's going to get you, you know what, man? I've seen more than enough videos. I know most of you have where people try to walk across streams.
Yeah.
You ever watch those videos? And they go whoosh, and just flip. They don't understand fluid dynamics and the amount of force on your feet. Not to mention, it's slippery.
Yep.
It's slippery. We got to jump to this story. We have to. This is the biggest news in the country. WNBA star loses wig during game as game stopped due to fan reaction. They also kicked the guy out. And are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
About it, or
for making fun of her? I'm watching the clip, and the player's wig comes off, and she runs out, and they stop the game, and I'm like, just shut it down. No more WNBA. You're not allowed to play if you have to pause, timeout, wig accident. That's the WNBA for you. I don't understand why anybody is acting like the WNBA matters. Why are they trying to make it a thing?
Everything about this league is just patently absurd. And I think perhaps the most absurd part is the players and others trying to protest that they're not paid enough when the league is 100% subsidized by the men, right? And that's supposed to be a win for feminism, to say we have a captive league that can only exist by the benefits of men, right? And by the charity of men, right? I mean, that's absurd. It's the opposite of feminism.
And not only that, I mean, the women that are saying, "Oh, hey, pay us what we're worth," etc. Like, they're totally ignoring that fact and making believe that isn't the actual situation. Which
the economic value is negative.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're actually worth economically, right?
I figured it out. It's Juana Mann. She ran off when her wig fell off because people are going to realize it's a disgraced former NBA player who's playing in the women's league to try and play ball. But here you can see the player right here. Her wig fell off. There she is. She grabs it and runs off the court.
I mean, if this were
ejected, get out.
A men's game, would there be any situation that you could even think of that resembles this?
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, but also, can we talk about the idea of kicking the fan out for laughing about what is clearly an absurd situation? I mean, what's next? You can't boo the opponent? I mean, this is a big part of spectator sports, right?
Yeah.
Is having fun, and even to the degree of being kind of mean, right, about the opposite team. And are we now censoring that? Is that now verboten or only in the WNBA, I guess?
There's only one person that laughed?
So I will say this.
No, I guess someone was like making fun of her. And so they removed him.
She deserved it.
I mean,
she ran off.
Sit in the outfield at
Mercury
Yankee Stadium, right, when the other team's in the field, when the Yankees are batting, and listen to the crowd mock the players, right? I mean, it's almost an art form, right? And it's as crude as could possibly be. I'm not saying that we all should model that behavior, but the point is that's part of sports, right? It's clearly part of sports. And we're saying you can't even make fun of something that's clearly a really, absurd situation.
So, I'm not particularly compelled or interested in the WNBA, but I do think it's a good thing that it exists. I think the worst thing about the WNBA, though, is that it seems as though the players are doing everything within their power to make the league fail. Most of the players are extremely unlikable. When they have one talented player, everybody on the other teams get jealous of her. There's a ton of envy amongst the league players. They're very arrogant. They're not open to change. One of the big things that they could do.
Taking the Colbert approach on this one, huh?
How so? What-
Being on the wrong side of a 820 issue?
So, but just let me finish. There's one thing that there was actually a couple of the players were asked, like, that could change the game to make it a lot more interesting, and that is lowering the rim to allow the women to be able to dunk. One of the things that, again, makes normal men's basketball very interesting.
Maybe like 5 feet.
Whatever it may be,
cut it in half,
8, 9.
and they
Like,
can just place
I
it.
think dunking would completely change the game for them. And they're like, no, we want to be like the men. We want to be like the men. So it's like this ego of
They need
trying
a bigger-
to
they need a
compare
bigger
themselves.
ball, too.
Well, they use a smaller ball
Right.
already.
So make the
There's-
ball bigger.
No, they should make it smaller so it's easier to dunk,
make it
lower
more,
the rim, make it easier for them to hit 3-pointers.
Add more than one ball and they can juggle them.
Start defending Caitlin Clark, and I mean, I think it's a good thing
way,
to have
dude.
young women to like have a sports league that they could potentially like look up to. But again, all these players
only
are
thing that-
extremely unlikable.
Yeah, right. The only thing they got going for them is that Foxy Boxing is live now in Indiana. I'm not kidding. Like, it's a disgusting league. It's a waste of money. It's laughably pathetic. Timeout. Wig fell off. Oh, what is this? Kindergarten? Oh, I lost my hair. Oh, I can't play no more. And then on top of that, when Caitlin Clark starts making the money for the league, they start beating the crap out of her.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
No,
You know,
those
like-
are still women, and there's a lot of envy.
just get rid of it. You don't deserve to have a WNBA anymore. Why
wouldn't be
Why
talk-
is the NBA paying for this?
We would not be talking about this topic tonight if it were not for Caitlin Clark. Like, that's the only reason. The WNBA was totally ignored before Caitlin Clark. So she made the league relevant, made it controversial, made it into something that Timcast wants to talk about. But here's the thing. So what do they do to thank her for bringing them relevance? They physically assaulted her every chance they got because she happens to be white and straight. Two unforgivable sins, apparently, in the WNBA. So, look, I think this league should be thoroughly mocked. I think it's a joke. I think it's bad for our culture. It's bad for our society because it's full of hate, and the hate is condoned and, in fact, sometimes even celebrated.
Well, I mean, look, it's all women, and women hate each other. So, I mean, they're going to hate. That's just part of the dynamic.
To continue harping on them being so unlikable, I forgot the tall woman who brought pot to freaking Russia like a a moron.
Brittany Griner.
And then Brittany Griner, and then we had to do one of the worst trade deals in history, giving up like an infamous Russian arms dealer, Victor Bout, I believe it was.
Very smart
Like,
woman.
She need to be smarter than that, man. So again, the league are making themselves extremely unlikable, but like on principle, I think the idea is nice. Like a women's league.
What do
On principle, just it's a new business. I like when businesses thrive and try to empower women, but when it
this
plays
one's
out
not
like
thriving.
this,
right? So
it's not.
what do Brittany Griner and Bridget McCrone have in common?
Potentially men, or I don't know, allegedly.
Bro.
I'm saying that with so many
As
allegedly.
long as we're talking conspiracy theories,
No,
the
I don't want to
Griner
get
one-
sued because the Macrones are coming after.
You can't get sued for calling a woman a man.
You can in France, apparently.
No, they're
that's
suing
suits
Candace.
here.
They're suing her here, and it's going to get tossed out in 2 seconds. They're going to have to pay her legal fees.
Yep.
It's a stupid suing Candace Owens because she called Bridget McCrone a man. That's protected speech.
Yeah, and everyone knows
can't-
Bridget McCrone is Eddie.
So the argument is in court you'll have to ask what's inherently defamatory about accusing someone of being transgender. And Bridget McCrone is going to have to publicly state being transgender is bad and defamatory because. So it's not going to happen.
Look,
And
man,
Brittany Griner's been
Part of the paradox of this case, for sure.
There's allegedly a video of Brittany Griner walking around with no shirt on, and it's a guy. Maybe it's not Brittany Griner. I have no idea, but this is the internet, so if it's on the internet, it must be true.
Listen
I
to
guess.
Brittany Griner speak.
Right.
Bro.
Well, there are a lot of butch, masculine women who. I mean, no, she did. I know what video you're talking about without her shirt on, and it did look a little bit odd. But
It's a guy.
I didn't see the
do
video.
you think Bridget McCrone is a man? More importantly, though,
I didn't before, but after this lawsuit, I'm like, oh man.
yeah, she really Streisand affected that. But
Yeah.
if I'm Bridget McCrone, I'm so conflicted on like how to fight back against Candace.
way,
Like,
too-
You don't. You just Michelle Obama is just like whatever.
With Macron, by the way.
No, to be real quick, sorry. One of the reasons there's a rumor that the reason Michelle Obama refuses to run for president is because they call her a man. Like, could you imagine being like an aging woman and you're getting old and ugly, and then all over the world millions of people are like, that's a guy. That's gonna rip at their hearts, you know. So I heard Michelle Obama won't run because of the man comments.
in that case, it's a very effective way to get her to not run.
Indeed, it
Really
is.
happy about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be in the limelight and get called a man for 2 years.
Yeah,
or 6.
I struggle with it because what if Bridget McCrone actually is a woman and she's just being mercilessly slandered by Candace Owens?
How's it slander?
Almost baselessly, because like she's repeating some
Well, what's slander?
some almost slanderous about calling Bridget McCrone a man.
Yeah.
Because she's allegedly a woman.
Right, but what's slanderous about it? What's inherently
She's lying
defamatory?
about the gender of.
If I said, "Hey guys, Elaad, he's actually got blonde hair," oh, whoa, how is it defamatory?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because that would mean that the Prime
What if I
Minister of
said
France is married to a man who's pretending to be a woman.
What's
That's a huge scandal.
defamatory about it? That's the question.
That they're lying about her gender.
What's defamatory about it?
To lie about somebody's gender, to imply that they switched genders when they didn't, feels
It's a
defamatory.
statement. It's a statement. Now, what is defamatory?
They're defaming her.
So let me try this again. Defamation would be like if I said Elaad kicks dogs for fun. He goes to parks and kicks dogs, right? I am striking at your honor and trustworthiness. If I said he has a disease, if he committed a crime, if he throws, he spray paint vandalizes churches, these are defamatory. If I said he once paid a hooker to pee on a bed, that's defamatory. Saying Bridget McCrone is a man, what about that is inherently defamatory? Right. I understand you keep saying it over and over again. I'm asking you that question because the reality is there's only a conservative answer, which is it is offensive to conservatives to surgically alter your body. It's considered amoral, and it's going to upset your standing in the conservative and religious communities. Is that the argument she wants to make? Because she can. But on the surface, publicly, there is nothing inherently damaging or defamatory about calling a woman a man or a man a woman. It would be no different than if I said you had blonde hair and you dye it.
I think there's something a little bit different there, Tim. Because I think she's trying to hurt her public image here. And you saying I have a different hair
let's try
color.
this again.
Your point
Let's
here
try this again.
Yeah.
What is damaging to Bridget McCrone's public image by being a man?
It's implying that she's the opposite gender and a closeted transgender person.
I think the only thing
and that she's trying to harm her public image.
Elaad, I think the only thing that could be said that would be damaging would be implying that she's dishonest, but actually being transgender isn't. And I think that's a big stretch, to be honest with you.
Calling someone a liar is not defamation.
That's why I said it's a big stretch, but it's not. It technically isn't defamatory to say.
No, the reality is she's
transgender.
considering it defamatory because Candace hurt her feelings. That's it. Mm-hmm. It is not defamatory. If someone went online and said Tim Pool is actually a trans man and has been a woman his whole life or whatever, a transvestigator, there's nothing defamatory I could do. You can't do anything about that. There's just nothing you can do about that. You can literally call someone a white supremacist. You can't sue them. It's not defamation.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how this plays out in Delaware court. I'm not a lawyer, so you could be right on the definitions.
Oh, bro, I've been involved in so many lawsuits pertaining to this stuff. It's going to get thrown out. The judge is going to, well, to be honest, the judge could be like, the French president's telling me what to do. But there's no way this survives any meaningful court. Because even if they could prove that Candace knew Bridget McCrone was actually a woman, there's no damages from it. It's not defamation per se, and there's no damages. So it's like she knew she was lying, but Bridget McCrone's not been damaged in any meaningful way.
And well, do you believe? I mean, the issue at hand here is: do you actually believe Candace Owens when she's saying this? She staked her so-called journalistic reputation on this.
I think Candace Owens thinks Bridget McCrone is a man. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited to see how this plays.
I don't think Michelle Obama is a man though.
I totally understand your logic here, right? Because you're saying there's obviously an implied value judgment if it is defamatory. But I would also push back and say that to the sensible masses, transgendering is a negative, right? So to the sensible masses, it is defamatory if it's not true, because that is negative, and they do judge that as being a poor decision to change your sex.
It's not. I think if you said something like Elaad. Appearance defamation is so hard because, like, on the surface, I just don't. There's no way this could be defamatory because you're literally just talking about her looks. You can make an argument that Elaad is a sinner. Like Elaad has. That's the point. The only arguments about why it would be defamatory is that she has sinned or something. Because to the left, it's a whole net positive.
Sure.
She's come into herself and it should be celebrated, and it's prideful.
Right.
So at the bare minimum, it's not defamatory. It just is a statement, and there's nothing to sue for, and she's not been damaged by it. I mean, maybe she'll come out and be like, I was trying to go to a beauty pageant. They won't let me in because they thought I was a man.
I think her
I really
reputation's
doubt
been
it.
damaged here. I think her, because people think that she's a closeted transgender person.
Elaad,
Many people believe that she's literally a man, and that harms the reputation of her and her husband to be
Right. Okay.
closeted homosexuals.
I'm going to ask you again. Just if I said something like Elaad kicks dogs, okay, that is a violent action. It is a criminal action. It can cause monetary damages with veterinary bills. If I said Elaad is a vandal, that's not defamatory. If I said Elaad vandalized a church at this place, it is, because I am implying you have committed a crime. In fact, that is defamation per se. To say that Bridget Macron is a man does none of these things and results in no required corrective marketing. There's no damages to be corrected. Half of the people like that she's trans and half of the people don't, so it's neutral at best. When you say it's reputation damaging, I'm asking you to explain in what way it damages someone's reputation. Again, the only argument would be that it's a sin. In the religious community, it's seen as sinful. In the liberal community, it's seen as prideful. So it's kind of neutral, I guess, right? It is universally accepted that kicking dogs is bad. So it harms your reputation because people now won't let you near their dogs. You can't go to the local, dog competition or whatever, dog show. That all makes sense. She's not going to be banned from anywhere. She's not going to have to spend any money. There's just nothing defamatory there.
I guess not. We'll let the courts decide.
Yeah. Why are we even talking about this now?
From the WNBA.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Brittany
Griner.
Yeah.
Worst
You want a
trade
man.
deal again. Victor Boone. I can't believe that. Like
The
so
merchant
outrageous.
of death, right?
Yeah.
Should have let her
Worse than
stay
trading
where she-
away Babe Ruth.
That's out before my time. I don't know.
The Red Sox
reference.
traded Babe Ruth to the Yankees.
Okay. I don't, yeah, Brittany Griner, dumb trade deal. I can't believe she was even dumb enough to bring pot to Russia. Nonetheless, anyway.
Let's jump to the story from Newsweek. Ron DeSantis predicts NYC cops will flee to Florida if Zohran Mamdani wins. I don't know about Florida, but Florida's probably a good choice. What do you guys think? You think if this commie wins mayor, the cops are going to flee?
Yeah, I mean, and why wouldn't they, by the way? I mean, it's
Because
already...
they're commies too.
No, most cops are not, clearly.
In New York, I think they are.
No, not even in New York. Come on. I mean, most New York cops are salt of the earth,
They're
wonderful,
POCs
patriotic people.
in New York. All the
I disagree. I think a lot of the cops in New York are commies.
I
think a lot of them are.
strongly disagree with that.
I think a lot of them live in Staten Island and hate what the city is, but having lived in New York for 5 years and routinely interacted with NYPD, I think they're mostly default lib, and default lib is, to be fair, not commie, but when the communists get power and say, go do communist things, they go, okay, boss. Like when they painted Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower, and then 26 officers were like, you got it, boss. It's an illegal theft of public funds without city council approval, and they're painting a public message on a street which violates federal law, but we're going to enforce it anyway.
Right.
And then NYPD started arresting a bunch of people. Or how about when in New York during COVID, when they shut down churches and the cops were like, what was it? No more First Amendment? All right, we'll arrest people at the church. That doesn't sound like salt of the earth. That sounds like commie.
I will grant you that certainly there are a lot of compliant cops who are willing to obey against their better judgment, but that doesn't make them communists, certainly in their mentality.
Like when a communist says shut a church down and the cop says you got it, boss, sounds like a commie to me.
I don't believe that they're communists. I will say this, though. I think that it's very telling that the NYPD can't recruit people, right? That people do not want to join, knowing that they're going to be given an impossible mission to try to fight crime when city leadership, if anything, will take the side of the criminals in every judgment call and every occasion where it's in any sense not clear.
Let me ask you, why do you think it is that why do you believe NYPD cops are not communist?
Just from knowing so many cops and from
NYPD cops?
I've known enough, not as many as Chicago, of course, but yeah, I spent a lot of time in Chicago or New York and certainly know NYPD. But I think in general, beat cops, I'm not talking necessarily about leadership, but in general, beat cops overwhelmingly are salt of the earth, patriotic, generally very observantly religious people who do a really hard job and take tremendous risks for public safety. I think they're honorable people on the whole.
Wouldn't communists hire other communists to be police officers?
I mean, sure. Are there infestations of that? Sure, of course there are.
So, so you think it was good, God-fearing men who shut churches down in New York?
Clearly not. But I think
then how? Like, where were the good cops then to say, hey, you can't shut a church down?
I think unfortunately they were intimidated and compliant, and probably a lot of them were fooled into believing they were doing something noble, into believing the Fauci nonsense, and into believing that lockdowns were actually effective, and that this was for the good of the people.
Violated the Constitution. I mean,
I'm not defending any of it, right? At that time, contemporaneously, I was one of the loudest voices possible opposing what was going on. I'm saying a lot of cops probably believed the propaganda from Fauci and others.
Communist propaganda.
And
then marched in lockstep and enforced it, right?
But well-meaning people can believe lies if they are sold effectively to them. That's my point.
So like the Milgram experiments, when they had people believe they were electrocuting the other person and said, don't worry, I'm the authority and I tell you to do it, so it's okay. And then they had people on the other side screaming and begging for it to stop, and the doctor's like, no, you keep going, and they would just keep doing it. I think that's what communism stems from. So when you have a police department, I'll say this, the state troopers, a lot of NYPD did refuse to shut down bars in Staten Island, and NYPD refused to shut down a bar, so they had to bring in state troopers. But when it comes to the enforcement of communism, it largely has to be a Milgram-compliant group of cops. And so if you have, at the highest levels, the government of New York is largely communist. SDNY is communist. I'm saying that only a little bit tongue-in-cheek because they are actually enforcing these like Marxist theories and critical theories, but it's more of just cabal corruption. The mayor appoints his head of the police department, who's going to be a political ally, a commie, and that person's going to put other cops in positions of power who are going to align or do as they're told. Communism can't survive if there are actual God-fearing police officers who say, I'm not shutting a church down, good luck. Instead, what happened? The commies got power, and they said, no more church for you, and the cops were like, you got it, boss. Just like that. Now, that person is going to hell.
Yeah.
No question. And if they think otherwise, they should. Well, maybe they can repent. I don't know. I'm not an authority figure on this. I just got to tell. I would assume, and y'all can criticize me for this and tell me I'm wrong, but I would kind of assume that if you use the threat of violence and force against Christians who are trying to go to church to worship, that's probably a hell-worthy trespass, I'd imagine. Maybe I don't know. I'm a lapsed Catholic, so I don't really know much about what I'm talking about. But certainly seems like one of the most egregious things you can do is use the threat of violence against people to stop them from praising the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's what they did in New York. So I think they're communist. I don't think they'll flee to Florida. I think Zohar Mamdani will get in. They'll be like, you got it, boss. And then they're going to say, take over this grocery store. We're turning to public works. And they're going to say, sure thing. No questions asked.
I think the NYPD has a very tough, very thankless job, but at the end of the day, they do what they're told in their job because they want to keep their job, they want to keep their pension, and that's their interest for the most part. So when you see people like the NYPD following orders like that, they don't want to lose their job because if they weren't following orders, then they would be fired. So
because their job is more important to them than the Constitution or their faith or their family. To be fair, I mean, it's reasonable, right? You got a family, you got a salary. Your kid needs to go to school. Your kid needs food. And the government comes to you and says, you will either do as you're told or you'll be in the pen with them. And that's what we saw when they went to the Jewish communities and started chaining the parks shut and shutting the schools down. They were spying and looking through windows because the Jewish community was trying to have, school and temple and stuff like that. And in Seattle, what we saw was there's a video I like to cite where Antifa threatened a guy, and they were all across the street marching towards him as he walked backwards with his hands up. Police pull up behind him, get out of the car, grab his hands, put him behind his back, and arrest him, and apologize to Antifa. And it's fascinating to me that, like, there's this generic conservative view that all cops are good or the police are good, and I'm like, bro, the Soviet Union, the cops were communists too. And in Venezuela, the cops, they're all communists.
I will say most of the NYPD are outer borough or greater metropolitan area cops that
don't want to lose their jobs, man.
Yeah, they don't want to lose their jobs. But most of them are Republicans. And I think it's worth saying, too, that everybody on the left in New York City doesn't think they're communists.
I don't know
they think
they're
all fascists. I know many of them aren't.
I'm going to say this. You made the point. They're having trouble recruiting because the reality is the good, God-fearing, conservative, Christian, or constitutionalists are refusing to join a communist police department.
Well, we've demoralized the NYPD too. I mean, I think that's a bigger part of it. This was coming on the heels of like the defund the police movement and seeing like how when police actually enforced the law, the consequences that they had for enforcing the law, even when they're doing it correctly, that when, there's trouble in the subway, they're going to have to think twice about whether or not to do anything because they don't want to get in trouble down the line. So I think they're again being put in an impossible position and then being criticized from both sides.
And then when those lawyers were passing out Molotov cocktails, and what someone firebombed an NYPD van, I think.
Multiple during
they get a slap on the wrist and a sweetheart deal, and the cops are told nope. So what I see is happening is, look, 5 years ago during the riots, I was defending the cops who were trying to stop the riots, but it's pretty obvious what happened. These cops started quitting. We talked about this for the past the couple of years afterwards of departments seeing massive. They were getting defunded, and cops were quitting. And what did we all say here? They were replacing the good, conservative, constitutionalist cops with communists. And that's what they have done. So on the question of, will New York City cops flee to Florida? No, of course not. The ones that were going to flee fled a long time ago. 250,000 people fled Manhattan during COVID.
I don't know that that's accurate because Mamdani, with the whole defund the police stuff, and if he is actually going to have policies that either shrink the department or limit the department's ability to enforce the law, there might be more people that actually resign and decide that they don't want to be a police officer in New York. How many? I don't know. Will they go to Florida? I don't know. But I imagine
1%.
that he's not going to be popular with the police force.
And my point is that it's a small percentage of people that remain that hold those values. If you stuck around through COVID and shut churches down, then why would you leave now? When a communist comes in and says, hey, it's time to bring the boot down on people, you'd be like, just like we did 5 years ago. You got it, boss.
There's a whole slew of reasons why someone might leave now. Maybe they couldn't leave before. Maybe they had family ties that are no longer there. So,
that being the case, it's not about Zohran Mamdani winning is the point. If someone wanted to leave and they're saving up money to do so, it's irrelevant to Zohran Mamdani's win. My point is his policies, I don't think will have a substantial impact on the NYPD because COVID already did.
Here's what I would tell you is the difference. And I'm not excusing what anybody did during the COVID panic, right? And cops who enforced those draconian regulations were clearly wrong, right? I mean, egregiously wrong, right, in what they did. However, you have to remember, there was a national almost psychosis because there was such a mass panic that was spread with seemingly authoritative voices leading a very compliant corporate media that all did it in concert. Why? Because they wanted to defeat Donald Trump. It had nothing to do with public health.
Sure.
Had nothing to do with the virus. It's because it was election year and they thought they could beat Trump. So my point is, though, most cops were fooled. Most cops were fooled by that mass psychosis.
And do you think communist regimes are any different?
Right, but the point is we're not under mass psychosis now is my point. And so given that, when Mamdani comes in and says I'm the newly elected Marxist mayor, not that I'll say it, but I'm the newly elected Marxist mayor of New York, I think the reaction is going to be entirely different now from the NYPD than it was in 2020. And again, I'm not excusing them because they should have been more thoughtful, but the point is very few people were thoughtful during the lockdowns, right? It took a lot of guts, a lot of thinking to stand up and say, all of this is wrong. It's not based on science. It's violating the Constitution.
And every communist revolution or fascistic takeover is going to be predicated upon some kind of disaster or emergency.
Yeah.
So if you are not cognizant of these things when you are outright defying the Constitution, I think Let's if you want to be literal as we can be, will NYC cops flee to Florida? Yeah, sure, but what could that be? A couple dozen, maybe? I don't know. Would they go to Florida? Maybe not Florida, but sure, some might leave.
Yeah.
My point is I think most of the cops of conscience left a long time ago.
That's a valid point. Yeah.
When they were told shut down churches, they probably went, hell no. Are you nuts? That's crazy. It's crazy what people did. Like, not only does it strike at the heart of this nation as to what the founding principles literally were, freedom of religion. It's the First Amendment, the right to peaceably assemble and worship as you see fit. And Cuomo was like, I don't care. I can do whatever I want. It's an emergency. And the cops were like, yeah, an emergency. And then they went and shut everything down. That's New York.
An emergency.
That's right.
But
They
let
put
me
their
ask you this.
gloves
How
on.
about the other side of the equation then of those churches, the pastors who acquiesced overwhelmingly, whether they wanted to or not, right? There were very few brave cases. There were some, but very few brave cases where they said, no, we're not shutting down and you can arrest me. So, do you believe that all the priests and pastors are also communists? Or again, does
No, I
my
think-
theory make more sense that they were falsely submitting to a
Who held the
mass
guns?
psychosis and to propaganda?
So in Venezuela, the reason the communists maintain power is because they go to the national. First of all, starvation is a key component of how they maintain power. They go to the National Guard and say, "Your family will starve, or you can do as you're told." And they say, "Yes, sir, I will not defy you," because they don't want their kids to starve. They don't want to be homeless. And so when the government says, "Shoot those teenagers who are protesting," they say, "Yes, sir." The cops, exact same thing. This is what evil is. People believe that the deal with the devil was always going to be he'd offer you a Rolls or a private jet and beautiful women. No, the devil's going to come to you, grab you by the balls and say, "I will take your children from you unless you serve me." And they say, "I will do anything you say." So the idea that evil forces took over New York, San Francisco, Chicago, New Zealand, all these countries, and I think we truly got to see who was willing to join the dark side and be evil. And there's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be an internal justification for it. And when the Bolsheviks wage their revolution, the cops are going to say, "Look, man, if we speak out, my kids are going to be left homeless, and I'll do anything for my kids. I will gladly serve the communists." And that's literally what they did. The priests, I don't really blame the people who have guns pointed at them when the villains are taking over with guns and saying, "I will beat the crap, I will destroy your life." To be fair, though, I do think, especially for people, for a certain, men of the cloth, they absolutely should have said, "You will not defy the Lord," and kept those churches open. And it does say a lot when they're like, "A handful of guys have threatened me and my faith and my flock, and I will acquiesce." That's insane to me, absolutely insane. You'd think of all the groups, they'd be like our law supersedes yours, and we're backed by the Constitution as it is. And, you make a good point. A lot of these guys were just like, "Okay, no more church." That's insane. Not to mention, a lot of these churches are flying pride flags anyway. Yeah. So are they really churches?
They're not really churches, yeah.
Right.
Only Catholic presenting churches.
Yep. All right, everybody, we're gonna go to your chats and messages. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. That uncensored portion of the show is coming up at 10 p.m. at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Sign up, you don't want to miss it. If you want to call in, you got to become a member at timcast.com of our Discord server, where you can hang out with like-minded individuals. And this Saturday, oh boy, Michael Malice, angry cops, debating police. This conversation we're having, it's going to get crazy. Michael Malice, of course, he's pro-Trump, but he's an anarchist. And so he's talked about how cops, I'm going to ruin his quote, but he said, "There is no law so depraved that a police officer would not enforce it up to and including the killing of children." That's Michael Malice. He will be debating angry cops, Richard High, who is in fact a cop. And they're both hilarious, and they're going to laugh, and they're going to get along, but it's going to be funny as funny can be. And I think we just about sold out. You can try and get tickets, but I think we've got it's like 180 something so far, and there's like 20 tickets left perhaps. I recommend you buy them at the DC Comedy Loft now. And if you're a member, the members had an after party last time. Our official after party is on the 9th. So at the 9th, we're having a bar event with like 2 drinks per person. And, but get those tickets and let's read your chats. See what you guys got going on. All right. D42 says Elaad is missing local Bolton bro for his intro.
That's not a bad idea.
I used to do resident neocon, Jewish affairs correspondent. We could add to the list. There's a lot going on. I like White House correspondent, though. I feel like that you want to lead with your strong foot, right?
Sure.
T. Butterbow says, last episode, Cartman was sad, woke was dead. Butter said it still exists. Enter Charlie Kirk debating woke students on college campuses. I mean, I'll say it again. When you were being mocked by a show like South Park, Family Guy, The Simpsons, it's when you are at the top of cultural relevance. So when they're mocking Charlie Kirk, all that matters is everybody knows his name. Mm-hmm. So, I was talking to Sean earlier, and he was like, "They're going to make fun of you, Tim." And I was like, "No, they're not. Because we're not widely known enough for a joke to land." The Charlie Kirk Cartman, a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, like those videos I see from the colleges. Yeah, I know who that guy is." Plus the memes and all that. Charlie's the most prominent conservative right now in the United States, I think.
Charlie
Most
Kirk is
famous.
a potent political force. I predict he will eventually run for president and maybe succeed in that.
Maybe, but I don't know. He comes off more of as a like CEO type, I think.
But he's only 31. Give it a couple of decades, like he's still so young. People start their political careers at 50
but
or
like
60.
I think it's more likely he ends up as some kind of right-wing version of a Soros type guy.
I
Like
don't know
a
if he has
power,
enough
a power.
money to do that. I don't know if
Yes,
he
he's
can
only 31. Give him
Soros
some
level
decades.
money. Okay, hey.
Hey, hold on. Charlie's got money, and he's a young guy with massive success at a very young age, running one of the biggest political organizations in the world now, and I think he's the most powerful person politically in the United States.
If it's between him being a Soros or a presidential candidate, it seems like Charlie Kirk has a bright future, so we think.
And obviously, I'm talking outside of politics, in media spaces and political campaigning. I think Charlie is at the top. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's like a pyramid where it's him and there's nobody else. It's a mound, but when you compare him to everybody else, Charlie's look at Turning Point's yearly event in Phoenix. Absolutely insane how massive this is.
Well, it's not only just him as like a political influencer, as you mentioned. It's Turning Point USA. It's Turning Point Action. It's hiring a lot of effective political voices on the right. He has this inside-outside game where he has a lot of great relationships with people inside Congress, inside the administration, and has a foot on the outside too. So I think this guy's a force to be reckoned with, especially down in the future.
All right. P. Soupy says it would have been hilarious if South Park had a clip of Trump, Shrimp Dick, doing things to himself, watching a video of himself getting shot. Like, come on, South Park. I mean, come on. There's so many jokes they could have made, and it's funny that the liberals are like, haha, the conservatives are mad. Like, the conservatives that are mad because they're not doing it good enough. Like, make fun of Trump better. Just saying he's fat with a tiny wiener is lazy, man. I was saying they should have done the Epstein escape heist where they break him out of prison and then Trump and him have a secret handshake because they're good friends. They could have done so much of that. They didn't do any of it. Yeah, Trump and Epstein's secret handshake. Come on. And he's like, I'll get you out of here, buddy. And they should have done an actual Trump voice.
Didn't they do a whole season dedicated to Trump with Mr. Garrison?
It was 10 years nonstop of them talking about Trump.
Yeah.
And all they can do is be like, he's got a small dick, I guess.
Well, and I think it's telling that, in general, I think South Park is really funny. So the fact that they're not funny with Trump tells me that they can't sort of check their ideology. In other words, they're so blinded by their disdain for him that they stop being creative.
No,
when they address Trump, they're like, no, we're just going to use the laziest trope against him we can find.
I don't think they hate Trump at all. They're libertarians. I think they're probably...
Oh, you think they're obeying orders? Like the cops?
I think they're just like, we don't really know how to... He's the president, so we'll make fun of him. We make fun of the president, I guess. And they don't really know how to do it in a meaningful way. So they're like, just idiocracy level, on my balls. I won't be surprised if the next episode he just gets hit in the football hitting the ground with a football. Like, right? See, it's
Work
funny.
on us.
You know what I mean? But it's lowbrow. I'm saying, like, as a political junkie, I want to see Trump. I want to see a flashback where this is the joke I made. Tulsi Gabbard, Trump, and like Rubio are breaking into the prison to break him out of jail in 2019. And he's like, all right, take the cameras out. And they hack the cameras and the cameras go down because the cameras were down. And then he has a ball and he rolls it towards security guards and gas knocks him out because the guards fell asleep. And then they go and they smuggle him out. And then they go to a secret lair where they do their secret handshake because Trump and Epstein were friends the whole time. It would have been hilarious. I'd have been laughing at it. I'd have been like, that was good. Instead, they were like, he's gay and like Satan. And I was like, okay, well, like mocking gay people like that, I guess. It's not really my jam. Right. Conservatives, I guess, are really happy with their bent. Whatever. South Park's been ragging on trans people. Now they're saying being gay is like Satan. I don't know, whatever.
I mean, I like you said, the actual jokes they made with the whole Trump sleeping with Satan. It's like that is rehashed, and it's like they are better than that. So
you know what? They did it first with Hitler, though, so that may be where they're going with that.
You mean Saddam?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was
Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, it was Saddam. Yeah.
So they're doing Trump as identically as Saddam Hussein, and Satan even says, "You're like this last guy that I dated," and it's like, okay.
It's a crazy
Nostalgia
comparison because Saddam was a bloodthirsty dictator who, called people. He had this one famous clip of him, doing this announcement and saying, "You guys need to tell me you're guilty," and then he just started killing random people in the room in his government. But
I wonder.
He murdered everybody that didn't support him.
I wonder if what's going on with South Park is not so much they're like go after Trump. It's that I said it before. I say it again. They're remaking Scrubs. They're remaking King of the Hill. They're remaking what's the Malcolm in the Middle? Brett was saying maybe Married with Children. They're rebooting all these shows because people just want nostalgia bait. They made Happy Gilmore too. It was not good. It was just nostalgia bait. Guys, it wasn't good. Everyone's like, no, it was really good. No, it wasn't. It was just that you got to, they literally just did flashbacks to the first movie. I'm not kidding. He literally shows, like Adam Sandler goes, I'm not going to work with a guy who eats pieces of ish for breakfast. And then it flashes back to the first movie. And I'm like, that's just the same joke. But it was fun because it was like, hey, I remember the 90s. And that's what South Park's doing right now with Saddam. They're like, hey, remember the 90s? Saddam Hussein? Woohoo! It's funny. Member berries. The funny thing is South Park's got all these memes, including member berries. Did you guys know this one? South Park had an episode where it was the berries being like, remember this? Remember that? And they were making fun of this nostalgia bait. Now South Park's just doing it. For $30 million an episode, hey, I'd probably do it too. Hey, I'll tell you what, CBS, you pay me $30 million, I will make really good episodes making fun of Trump. They will be funny.
Where would you go? I would go to Putin, right? I mean, if you want to be smart and funny, right, run with that theme that he's somehow Putin's, whipping boy, which of course is absurd. But
maybe,
you could be funny with that.
I think the Epstein stuff, like I was saying.
Oh, you go Epstein, yeah.
Well, the thing about Putin is that it's old, and so the modern thing right now is Epstein. And the conspiracy theory is that the cameras went down, or not conspiracy, but the reports where the cameras were down, the guards fell asleep, and I'm like, so explain that with Trump breaking Epstein out of jail. And then you have the press asking Trump about Epstein. He panics and says, we don't want to talk about this. Why? It's a fake. It's a hoax. He runs away, goes into a secret elevator where he's in an underground lab where his buddy Epstein is still alive, and they do the secret handshake. And then they go, boom, baby. Yeah, which is a callback to South Park. Yep. They could have done all that stuff. Instead, they're like, let's just, I don't know, have him. The thing about the episode was that there was no plot. It's just Trump walking around, and then random things were happening. And I was like, that's fine, but like liberals are all cheering for it, and it's like, this is just Colbert all over again. It's just, but hey, for $30 million an episode, what are you going to do, right? All right, let's go. AK Storm says, Tim, you talk about the right not driving the narrative, but cover viral stories. How would you drive the narrative if you owned Fox, and why don't you do it with your shows? I love all the shows. We do. You'll notice that these like biased fact checker sites are like Tim Pool's conservative because we tend to stick to narratives that are not led or pushed by the left, right? That's the point. So what I mean is, and it's not something we've seen recently. For a long time, the left would drive, they would choose. The New York Times would publish a story and it was just considered fact. Not anymore. Not anymore. Now the New York Times is desperately trying to say the Obamagate stuff isn't real, and the narrative is being driven by Trump and Tulsi Gabbard. When the Epstein stuff happened, the media very much cared about it, as we all did, and Trump launched a ton of stuff. Now we've got a story, we didn't even get to it, that a meteor is going to slam into the moon and blow it up by 2032. Did you guys see this story?
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
I didn't know that it was 2032.
7 years, that's it.
Potential asteroid impact on moon in 2032 could trigger massive meteor shower on Earth.
Oh, I need to get married. Children before that.
Why?
Well, then we got to blow it up, right?
My daughter's going to be 7 years old when rocks are raining down, destroying everything and wiping out civilization.
Hopefully they go into the Pacific Ocean.
I guess
Even that would screw us.
Depends on the size.
What if it just blows the
It's
moon
going to be
up?
like Independence Day. America's going to take care of it. We're going to go blow it up if we need to.
Blow up the moon?
Well, no, blow up the meteors before we're going to do Star Wars for the moon, right?
Deep Impact. We're going to get a mining team to train to be astronauts instead of getting astronauts to train to mine.
Oil rig drillers.
Ben Affleck apparently asked the director, he was like, wouldn't it be easier to get a bunch of astronauts to train to do mining instead of getting miners to train to be astronauts? And he said, shut the F up. It's like, we're making a movie here, man.
Don't do rewrites.
All right. Arcadian Twilight says, perhaps it's time to mock South Park and Might Media and other large evil corporations in the way South Park used to. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think South Park's ratings are as high as they used to be. Nobody's ratings are that high. And of the past, in 4 years, they did, I think, 3 episodes per year, and they did a handful of specials. And their viewership is probably good, maybe 1 million or 2, but it's probably leaning slightly older. Let me ask you guys, do you think Gen Z watches South Park?
No.
No.
We don't got any Gen Zers in here today, but I think the answer is probably no. Probably not. Dude, I got to be honest.
They do a lot of scrolling on
I don't watch
TikTok or
Simpsons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't watch South Park that much.
They don't watch television, period, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just no linear TV for Gen Z.
South Park, I gotta say, I assume is targeting 40 plus. So it's better than Colbert. Because I'll say this: if you're CBS and you're looking at one whole NBA every year on Colbert, think about your 3 to 5 year plan for your investment, and you're going to be like, where are we at in 3 to 5 years with $40 million a year? Negative.
Yeah.
The audience will be dead.
Right.
It's like, okay, we'll cancel it now before it's too late. Then we're going to be losing $100 million a year. All right, what do we got here? Secession Now says, anybody who supports Israel is supporting the synagogue of Satan. May anybody who vacations in Gaza in the next 30 years burn in hell. Vacation in Gaza? Who's doing that?
I don't think anyone will be vacationing in Gaza.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Everything has been blown up in Gaza, so I don't think that there are a lot of people that are going to be like, I want to go to Gaza to vacation.
Vacant Stare says, I was very pro-Israel defending them in my personal life. That was until they attacked Iran and ran to Daddy Trump. They were willing to risk World War III and American lives.
That's where you drew the line? I mean, I think there could have been so many other things.
Randolph Shaw says, Israel is the greatest ally of the American empire and the greatest liability to the American Republic. Wow. Yeah, I think the sentiment is going south.
We'll see.
I think it's definitely becoming a partisan issue. I think this is very significant on the left. I think its impact on the Republican Party and on the right is a bit overstated. I will say, though, we just had our first Republican congresswoman, a Republican in Congress, call it a genocide, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She recently came out and described what Israel is doing as a genocide. And she is one of 10 lawmakers. All the other ones are far left progressive.
The evidence is that it's about generation, not about, political affiliation. Like, young people are not pro-Israel. Gen Z is not pro-Israel. And so it's not specifically about Republicans or Democrats.
Average Americans are not pro-Israel.
What was that?
The average American is not pro-Israel.
Yeah, apparently.
I think the median American voter...
I mean, this is literally just the Pew data that I pulled up before.
I think the median American voter is pro-Israel.
That's only because most people...
I think I can explain that generational shift. I think it's because older people had this reservoir of pro-Israel sentiment from decades of the United States and Israel being so close. However, for young people who are new to the situation, I think they see Netanyahu and they properly see in him somebody that we cannot trust. Because Netanyahu has been trying to get America to intervene in the Middle East for decades, and at times through just grossly wrong analysis, all the way back to the Iraq War, right, where he promised that he and Israel corroborated that there were weapons of mass destruction. I mean, this is 20 plus years ago that he did that in the United States, and he was very effective at that propaganda campaign. He has been wrong for decades. He has constantly harangued the United States and enticed the United States into fighting on behalf of Israel and into aiding Israel. Again, they're our friend and ally, but it doesn't mean that it has to be our money. Certainly doesn't mean that it has to be our troops invading. And I think young people see the failings of Netanyahu, and to them, that makes them extremely skeptical of Israel because they have none of that reservoir that older people do.
All right. Unit says, what was the story arc that had the character Chef leave South Park? I think shows like South Park and Simpsons know more than they're letting on. Family Guy. Seth MacFarlane has made several comments on the show and in private that he knew what was going on with Weinstein, whatever his name is. I don't know how to pronounce it. And as well as Kevin Spacey. There's a joke where Stewie is running through the mall screaming, help, help, I've escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement. And there were like comedy events he did where he made passive comments, and everyone's like, Seth MacFarlane knew what was going on in Hollywood and just didn't say anything. As for Chef, he's a Scientologist, and the story was that when South Park mocked Scientology, it was the Super Adventure Club, I think it was called, and they traveled to the jungle to to bang kids, to steal their life energy or whatever. The episode was, they made fun of South Park. I'm sorry, Scientology. Chef's a Scientologist. He got offended. They said, we make fun of everybody. You're not special, so he quit. But because they owned the rights to everything he's ever said on the show, they had him join the Super Adventure Club, which was crazy, and all of his lines were a hodgepodge of various lines he said in different episodes. So it was intentionally sounding weird and didn't make sense. That was the bit they did, and then he dies and becomes Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what do we got here? Cyborg Actual says, Elaad is wrong. I'm a Catholic, and I can tell you that most Catholics are staunchly pro-life. I think you can't be a Catholic and pro-choice.
Okay, so I don't know. It depends on, again, how you define Catholic. But in our country, some of the most prominent Democrats over the past decade have been Catholics, and they've been pro-choice.
Also, some of our most prominent Democrats are men who say they're women as well. So there's a is, and then there is a thinks.
according to polling, people who identify
As women,
Catholics,
or sometimes men. Right, I get it.
are more likely to identify as pro-choice than not.
And the point is, there are also men who claim they're women. So you can defy scripture and teachings and all of that and then be like, yeah, but I am Catholic. It's like, okay, well, you're not.
Yeah, but then
you
it's like
wanna
me
be.
judging your religion. And if I tell somebody they are or aren't a Catholic, I'm sure I'll hear an earful as well. So
Well, look at the bright side. You're going to hear an earful no matter what you
Yeah.
say. So just go ahead and say what you believe.
But again, there's a massive split between practicing Catholics and cultural Catholics. Practicing Catholics are overwhelmingly pro-life. But you're correct. If you lump in everybody together, which almost all polling does, and just says, what do you identify as, then Catholics are actually pro-abortion.
They go to their female-led church with pride flags hanging from the wall, and they pray to a non-binary Jesus.
I'm not trying to make like a political statement here, but there are a lot of Catholics heavily involved with like many of these progressive causes. And,
Right, but do you
there's-
understand what we're saying?
Yeah,
Like, we
you guys
get-
are just
we-
making
we-
a distinction between Catholics
who
in
are
name
claiming-
only
Indeed.
and people who are practicing
Kinos.
Catholics.
All right, we got a new
I
term.
don't want to start making these slurs for religions and stuff.
Right, but
I
when-
think
when-
it's almost
when you
like
see
a
these
distinction without a difference is kind of my point.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I don't believe that if, like, a guy puts on a dress, he's not a woman. Sorry. A Catholic, a pro-life liberal says, I'm Catholic. Sorry, you're just wearing a skin suit and claiming you're Catholic. You can't hang pride flags in your church with a female priest and be like, I'm Catholic. No, you're not. You're something else. You're just stealing the
Episcopalian.
word. Right. You're just taking the word. Right.
For you
Things are
Catholics to
things.
decide, not me. So
You think they're pro-choice Orthodox?
not Orthodox, but Reform for sure.
All right, let's get one more in here. What do we got here? Glorified Handyman says, sorry, update 8.7 magnitude earthquake off east coast of Russia, Hawaii, and Alaska are in the tsunami warning. The first wave is hitting 7 p.m. Hawaiian time. I'm in the Coast Guard. My unit is evacuating. Wow.
Oh.
Random Trader says, Wesley Lepatner, a senior executive at Blackstone and CEO of the Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust, was killed in a mass shooting at the company's Manhattan headquarters on July 20th, 2025. Indeed. Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of communists that are celebrating that because she was a CEO.
Clayton A says, what are the chances Tim gets featured in a South Park episode if this theme continues on? If they have me on South Park and I'm just saying, guys, make fun of everybody, make fun of me, make fun of Charlie, make fun of Trump with good jokes, like, okay, I guess.
They'd do Russia stuff if they did you. Come on. That's what they'd do.
Or Jewish stuff.
No, they wouldn't give you Jewish stuff. Come on. They have enough Jewish stuff on the show already.
Maybe Russia stuff.
Probably would be Russia stuff.
But I did that with Matan over the weekend, the Russia thing, you know. So it's like
I saw the thumbnail. He put a Russian flag behind you too.
he did.
The thumbnail.
It was funny. And he titled it Confronting Tim Pool on Taking Money for Russia Propaganda or whatever. That was fun. That guy's hilarious, man. I like that guy. He's great. He was at our Culture War event. He's very, very funny, and he helped make the show. But you know, I want to say one thing too before we go to the uncensored. All these people that show up and they're screaming at Pisco Liddy, the liberal lawyer who was defending Democrats and all that. And some people were like, "Why are you here? Why are you even talking?" Rah! And it's like, well, we invited him to debate, and he did. And he debated a lot, and we appreciate that he did because liberals are so scared of coming to these shows. And I'm like, I don't understand why anybody was mad that he was there when this was the point of the show. And we're going to have him back because he's a liberal willing to defend his positions and argue and debate with conservatives, and it's a good thing. But none of that next week. We have a pretty big liberal who may be joining us, like big following, but we don't know which date she will be on. I think it'll be better if she comes this Saturday because we have more space for it because it's only 4 of us right now. But we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. My friends, smash that like button, share the show if you really do like it. We're going to go to rumble.com/Timcast IRL for the uncensored portion of the show. Again, follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Steve, do you want to shout anything out?
Please go to CortesInvestigates.com to see my documentaries. Cortes with an S at the end.
Right on.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I am Elaad Eliyahu, White House correspondent and field reporter here at Timcast. Recently, I've been doing some of the most thrilling work in my career, and that has been watching ICE and Border Patrol detain illegal aliens outside of these New York City courts. You could go check that out on my Twitter and Instagram at Elaad Eliyahu. Phil?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. The band is All That Remains. You can check out a new album called Anti-Fragile on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, Deezer, and YouTube. Don't forget, The Left Lane is for Crime.
We will see you all at rumble.com/TimcastIRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.